Hey, what's up guys, and welcome back to the channel. And today we're getting into some disturbing confession threads, and today I will be reading your guys' submitted confessions that you sent to the email, and also some Reddit confessions I found on Reddit. So it should be very interesting, and like the title says, disturbing. So yeah, I'm excited to get into this. But if you'd like to see your confession read out in a future video, please send it to the email on screen now. Thank you. And yeah, today's video will be pretty wild, so make sure you stick around, and please like the video, subscribe to the channel, follow me on Instagram, and follow me on Spotify. It helps more than you know. And this video will be long enough already, so without further ado, let's get into some disturbing confession threads. I caused the house fire which killed my brother 5 years ago. Throwaway account because of obvious reasons. When I was 15, I had some of my friends over while I was watching my 11-year-old brother. My parents worked a night shift and I had to babysit him often, which I did not mind because I'd usually bring my friends over, and my brother wouldn't really care. It was around 10 p.m. and it was on a Friday, and my brother was asleep, so we wanted to have some fun. So one of my friends brought over weed. We were in my room, and one of my friends knew how to block the smell of weed with this thing he made that would block the weed smell so we could smoke it in the house. After we all ended up getting high, we decided we wanted to chill in the basement. We were down there for about 15 minutes. Eventually, we wanted to go up to my room again. When we opened the basement door, the whole house was foggy and smelled like smoke, and I could see the fire spreading to our downstairs living room area since our house was 2 stories. I grabbed my phone and opened the exit of the basement door, and me and my friends ran out as quickly as possible while I called 911. My brother was upstairs sleeping, and all I could remember was just crying, coughing, and being so dizzy from the shock and the smoke. I called my parents too, and they rushed home, and they got here after the ambulance and firefighters. When my parents got home, the fire in the house was gone, and I remember the paramedics rushing my brother on a stretcher into the ambulance. My mom went in the ambulance with my brother, and my dad drove us to the hospital. We found out most of his body had third-degree burns, and he was unstable and unconscious due to the smoke. I was not allowed to see my brother while I was there, and I had to keep waiting for my mom and dad to tell me everything was okay. My parents and I stayed at the hospital all night and a little into the morning, and eventually my mom and dad came out, because they were allowed to see him, to tell me that he was passing away due to the smoke inhalation. After our house was investigated for what could have started the fire, we were told that it was started in my room and they found a metal lighter. I remember bursting into tears, telling my parents why I had a lighter in my room and what happened, and I remember saying it was all my fault. To this day, I still feel the worst amount of guilt for what happened. And my parents have told me so many times that I didn't know that this would happen. They said they weren't angry with me, but I still feel like they had some sort of anger towards me at the moment. The house was completely gone, and we were lucky we had insurance and were even able to afford a new one. I'm 20 now, and I go to college and have a part-time job, but the guilt still haunts me so much, and I think about how my brother would have gone on to do amazing things. I know deep down that it wasn't completely my fault, and that I didn't know this would happen, but it still did. My mom and dad tell me all the time that they weren't angry with me, and that I was young and didn't know that this would have happened. OP discovers that her husband's dirty secret is far dirtier than she could have ever expected. Obviously using a throwaway account because, yeah. So over the past few months, I've noticed my husband sneaking out of the house at night, sometimes for hours at a time. I'm one of those people that fall asleep as soon as their head hits the pillow, so he obviously thinks I'm asleep. But one night, I heard the baby crying and noticed he wasn't there. At first, I thought he was sneaking out to see another woman, but it turns out it was worse than that, in my opinion anyway. We had our first child in February this year, and he's been a really hands-on father. Always is there to take care of the baby despite having a full-time job when I need a break and all that. I don't know how else to really say what he's doing without it sounding completely insane, because it kind of is. But it turns out, when my husband goes out at night, all he does is go into the yard where the trash cans are. rummages around and fishes out a dirty diaper from our child, opens it, and just stands there smelling it. It seems to only be the ones that our son has gone number 2 in, because I've seen him toss back ones that presumably only have been peed in and look for a dirtier one. And then he just stands there, taking this deep, contented breaths in of our child's excrement for ages. The sad thing is, he looks so damn happy when he's doing it too. I've watched him from the window for weeks now, just standing out there, sniffing with this huge grin on his face, and then rummaging around for another. The real icing on the cake was the other night when he came back to bed, once again thinking I was asleep. He must have got a bit too close to the diaper when he was sniffing our son's business, because when he got into bed with me, I could smell something and opened my eyes a bit when I finally heard him snoring, and it turns out he had a bit of poop on his nose. I felt so disgusted. Man, this is a wild story. And even though this isn't the OP confessing, I think it's kind of safe to say this is a weird sort of adjacent confession story. So hopefully you guys think this is relatively fitting for the title of the video. So I guess this is kind of a confession in a different sense, but let's continue. So I'm at a loss as to what I should do now. I love my husband, but this freaks the hell out of me. Has this happened to anyone else before? Is it an intimate interest or something? I'm too scared to confront him, but I know it needs to be done. And any advice would be great because, I mean, shit. And I see what the OP did there. And then the OP says, Edit 1, I'm still awake right now, feeding the baby and waiting to see if he'll make a move later on. Thinking about confronting him, but not sure if I will or not yet. Will update. Edit 2, wow, I can't believe how many people have replied to this post. First of all, thank you all for the people who wrote in with such thoughtful advice. I can't reply to everyone, but I've read every comment on here, so thank you. I still haven't confronted my husband about what he's doing. And the other night, after my update, after waiting an hour or two, sure enough, he snuck out again for his nightly diaper sniff. I was planning on confronting him, but he ended up coming inside after only smelling 1 or 2. And by the time he came back into bed, I was too nervous and flustered to say anything, so I just pretended to be asleep. I've decided, though, that either tonight or whenever he goes outside next, he doesn't every night, but most nights, to take a photo of him in the act and be waiting for him with the evidence when he returns inside. I've never been good with words, and I'm just too nervous to sit down with him and bring it up. And someone suggested I photograph/video him so he has no choice to explain, since I obviously have evidence, and leave him no room to pass it off, as he may be seeing him doing it something else. Hopefully I can get a clear enough picture that'll be enough for him to realize there's no way out but confront the issue. I'm nervous about how he will react, but I know he loves me and our family, and hopefully there is some way we can work through whatever this is together as a family. Thanks again for all the supportive comments and advice. There has been overwhelming support and only a few weird comments, and I really appreciate people reserving judgment of my family and I. I will update again once I've confronted him, and hopefully I'll be able to wrap this up nicely, and it'll be a happy endings all around. And then the OP gives us an update saying, first of all, I'm really sorry that it's taken so long to update about this. I've just logged on now for the first time in weeks because things have been absolutely insane for me. I've been putting off coming on here and updating because I'm ashamed and upset, and things didn't go the way I'd hoped after confronting my husband. Oh boy, what the fuck happened and where is this about to go? I have no clue. And then the OP says, and it's all been just way too much for me to handle confronting myself, let alone confessing to all of you. But I understand I posted my confession on here for advice, was met with overwhelming response, support, and understanding, and it's only fair that I give you guys at least one update on the situation as it stands today. I hope you all understand that I didn't want to go into too much detail with this. Firstly, to protect our identities, because regardless of what happens, I never did this to name and shame anyone. And secondly, because it's all too painful right now for me to sit down and write out every inch of hurt that has happened to me and my family over the past few weeks. I just don't have that emotional strength right now. Maybe in time I will, but right now, I just don't. So forgive me in advance if this is brief or I skim over details or dodge specifics. Basically, a few nights after I posted my last edit on the previous post, I gathered the courage to confront my husband. In hindsight, it might have not been the best way to do it, but at the time it seemed logical in the least confronting way, I could with still providing proof for me and my husband to see. So that night, I took some pictures with my iPhone and a short video out our bedroom window of my husband outside. It was blurry and hard to see, but enough for him to understand I knew what was going on. I waited for him on our bed with the evidence for a good 45 minutes before he came back upstairs. I expected him to be shocked and ask me what I was doing, but instead, he surprised me. He said something along the lines of, "Oh, did the baby wake you up? I was just downstairs eating some leftovers." Kisses me on the cheek. "Good night then," and tucks himself in and rolls over to sleep. I was dumbfounded at how quick he was to lie straight to my face. I guess when he came upstairs, I expected him to not be able to hold back from what he had been doing, or at least be worried about why I was awake, or the fact that I was awake. It made me so mad to see he was so prepared to lie to my face and pretend everything was fine when I had been concerned and upset for weeks. That exploded. I marched around the bed and shoved the evidence in his face, yelling at him and asking what the fuck he'd been doing for all this time and why. I demanded answers. The next few hours went by in a blur of yelling and arguing. His argument basically was that I didn't, couldn't, and would never understand why he did it. So why should he even bother telling me? My issue was the fact that I was trying really hard to be understanding of his nightly trash can visits, but instead I just got lied to by the one person in the world who was supposed to be honest to me. A lot more yelling, and I'm bawling at this stage, and ask between sobs if it's some sort of weird arousal thing for him. And he surprises me once more by going completely silent and just looks down at his feet. I explode once more, asking him how on earth can he find our child's poop in a arousal way, to which he got angrier than I've ever seen him before in my life. He yelled at me, "See, this is exactly why I can't ever tell you," and walked out our front door and drove off. He's been staying at his brother's house since, and hasn't been able to see our son. Frankly, if he's getting off by our son in any way, I don't want him here. I thought I'd give us a few days to cool down before calling him, but he called the next day and said we needed to talk about getting a divorce. Wow. We tried to both have a calm conversation. I said to him, please, let's try and sort something out, counseling, anything. And all he said in reply was, "Can I see my son though?" And I told him that honestly, I didn't think it was a good idea at this time considering the circumstances. He said okay and told him he'd be getting a lawyer and I probably should be too. So right now, we're doing it as civilly as we can through the legal system. But I doubt that he has anything against me considering I have evidence of sorts. My mother has come to stay with me in the family home to help out with the baby, and I haven't had the courage to tell her what our divorce is over. I'm just too ashamed. All I've said is, it's bad. And I tried giving him the option to counseling, which he rejected, and that's that. I don't know what will happen from here, but I thought at least you guys should know the essence of it. Thanks again for all the support and understanding. I hope you don't judge me for the way I approached it. I know I could have done better, but what's done is done, and I need to just put my heartbreak aside and try moving forward for the sake of my son. Because he is, and always will be, the priority in my life. And it has been 8 years since the last update. And I mean, wow, that was one hell of a confession. And I do not know how this OP is going to approach telling her mother how they got divorced. But I see no fault in the way she approached this. I mean, anybody, if they see their significant other go outside every single night to sniff their child's poop, yeah, they would be a little bit weirded out by that. They'd be like, hey, what are you doing at night? And then the husband gets super defensive and starts like very, very weird. I think it's crazy how quickly he's like, let's get a divorce. I mean, it seems pretty damning in my opinion, especially when she asked, what was the question? Like, why do you find it interesting to, sniff our child's poop and talking about the child? And he got very weird about that, which I think is very, very suspicious, very, 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 very odd, obviously, and very creepy. A very wild confession. This isn't the usual confession I cover, but I just thought it was insane and also pretty disturbing. So I just thought I might have to add it. But what are your guys' thoughts on this? I just thought it was pretty wild. I am not proud of my son. This Saturday, my son will have been sober for 18 months. He got his GED this year, and he starts at community college at the end of August. He finally has a job that I didn't get for him. Soon he'll be moving into his own apartment, and he hasn't missed a single appointment with his therapist. He has done everything you would expect of a precocious 17-year-old who hit a rough patch after meeting with a particularly bad influence. He is 29. This is the point where I'm supposed to say that. Nevertheless, I'm still proud of him for turning his life around, getting off drugs and off the streets, staying out of trouble, and acting like a responsible adult. Or at least an adult who knows the meaning of responsible. Maybe I'll throw in a reference to the prodigal son and kill a fatted calf for him. That's certainly what's expected of me. That's certainly what my son expects of me. He demands praise and forgiveness and a party and me to hug him and tell him he's all right. Demands me to tell him how proud I am that he's made something of himself. But I'm not. Because he hasn't. Not in the slightest. His mother and I gave him every opportunity we could. I don't expect any praise for that because, unlike my son, I don't expect praise for doing what you're supposed to. She and I worked hard to give him a loving, stable, comfortable, supportive home. We were involved in his school. We introduced him to music to the extent that any two people can. His mother was a damn good cellist, though. And sports and culture. We fed him healthy meals. We played with him. Thanks to him, we got in the best shape we'd ever been in since our 20s. And we let him stumble and fall and make mistakes and get back up again. He started shoplifting at 15. The first time we caught him, we bodily dragged him back to the store, made him return the copy of Grand Theft Auto and apologize, and offered to pay for any damages. The second time we caught him, this time with a pair of shoes, we did the same thing. The third time, we started going to family therapy. Therapy seemed to go well, and after a few sessions, the therapist asked for a few one-on-one meetings with him. After 2 of those, the police came knocking on our door because the little shit had concocted some story about how we were a religious cult who R-worded him for breakfast every Saturday, and the dumb chicken shit therapist actually believed him. Rational heads prevailed, and we fired that therapist, and it went through 6 more in as many months, until eventually we couldn't find anyone who would take him as a patient. By 16, he was drinking. Then we found pot in his bedroom, and in our bedroom. He started leaving needles and other sort of drug paraphernalia where he knew we'd eventually find them, just to fuck with us. I know this because he said so, in those exact words. He had his first intervention and first trip to rehab that year, and his first relapse. He had to repeat a year of high school at 17, which meant he was now the ringleader of a group of other young dipshits who saw him as the totemic mentor shaman who could hook them up with whatever shit they wanted. I'm also damn sure he started hooking up with one of the gang's younger sisters who was very young around then, but I had nothing to go on but my own instincts. So all I could do was tell her parents to keep an eye on her. No charges were ever pressed, and the family never spoke to me again after that, but they did pull both of their kids out of the school, and my son was furious at me for daring to not let him continue committing statutory R-word. He decided to try for normal R-word later on, while I was away. He spent an uncharacteristic night at home, and on his best behavior, after his mother went to sleep, he followed her into her bedroom. He took a knife with him. He crept into the room, straddled her, put the blade to her throat, and slid his other hand to do something to her. And I'm sure you can fill in the blank, but it's horrible. I don't know exactly what happened next. I know he held her down and tried to undress her. I know she fought. I know he stabbed her. I know she got away and locked herself in the bathroom before he could catch her. I hope that means she kicked him good in the balls. I know she broke the window and screamed for help. I know he ran. I know she was lucky the ambulance got to her before she bled to death. I know he called his friends to brag and beg a ride. I know the police caught him. I know if I'd been home, or if I'd caught him, I'd have killed him with my bare hands. The state tried my son as an adult. He pled out, but only after making his mother testify and smiling the whole time. She divorced me a month after his sentencing. I looked too much like him. She committed S-word a year later. I would be a liar if I said I didn't blame him for her death, because I absolutely do. He was sober when he went into her room, sober when he pulled out his knife, sober when he climbed on top of her, sober when he R-worded her, sober when he stabbed her, sober when he ran, sober when he called his friends to brag, and sober when the police found him. When I made the mistake of visiting him after the divorce, he laughed and said she'd had enough of his dick, that I could never satisfy her. When I made the mistake of visiting him after she committed S-word, he laughed again and asked how it felt to have some guy take your bitch away. I should have killed him right there. It is to my eternal shame that I did not. They let him out after serving 3 years. He spent the next 6 years on the streets, in and out of rehab, on and off other people's couches, and would grace me every 6 months or so with a phone call demanding money. Eventually, I refused to talk to him unless it was to drive him back to rehab, and I stopped completely after he stole my wallet. 2 years ago, he came to my house with his aunt, his mother's sister, in tow and crocodile tears in his eyes. He pretended to apologize. I slammed the door. His aunt barges in to try to shame me into forgiving the man who R-worded my wife, caused her death, and laughed about. He stayed outside. He slashed my tires, threw a brick through a window, and drove off in her car. His aunt had no idea that he'd taken his keys, or that he'd been armed the whole time. She blamed me. He guilted her into letting him stay with her, went to rehab and relapsed, and then went again, and here we are. In stark contrast to the ball of shit that is my son in his life, I've watched my friends and colleagues, those who will still talk to me, that is, children go on to become doctors, lawyers, skilled tradesmen, actors and musicians, academics, entrepreneurs, and career military. I've seen a few start their own families, and even the ones who've had a rough start, or who stumbled and fell, managed to pick themselves up again, or are bravely soldiering on. I have nothing but respect for them. I also note that they do not expect juice and a fucking cookie for having a job and not getting hopped up on crystal or R-wording their mothers for 18 whole months. My son has pretended to reform before. He has even convinced himself once or twice, but he always backslides, always relapses, always finds new ways to disappoint, always hurts other people for his own short-sighted belief. His aunt is already at the stage where she's pretending she must have forgotten, where she put some knick-knack or piece of jewelry, and has already told me to fuck off after I've warned her of what my son can, will, and has done before, and what he will do again now that he thinks she is weak. When he fucks up again, when he hurts someone else with his ceaseless bullshit, I will not be there to pick up after him. I'm through with him. I'm through with his aunt. I cannot talk to her without being overcome with rage and shame as I see the stupid hope I used to have that my son would ever amount to anything. And I do not need any more disappointment and failure in my life. I am not proud of my son. I am sorry for inflicting him upon the world. I killed someone today, and nothing feels like it's the right thing to do. 19 hours ago, 2 a.m. where I live, I was driving on the freeway and a motorcyclist lost control of their vehicle, and I arrived at the scene just as the police did. There wasn't a normal warning where the police weaved from one side of the highway to the other to warn of a crash. 1 second I saw police lights, the very next second I saw a body in the road. There wasn't enough time for me to evade or avoid, and I drove over the motorcyclist. He is dead. Everything since has just felt something I should be doing. After the police told me I was to go, I couldn't, and they ended up calling a crisis therapist to convince I was allowed to leave. But I couldn't just go home after the realization that there were pieces of a person on my car. I couldn't just go home and leave parts of a human being to deal with afterwards. So the therapist and officer told me I should go to a car wash. But that felt, well, I still don't know how that felt, to be honest, but it felt like the less wrong thing to do, so I agreed. Somehow, in my shock, I had convinced myself that this is just something that happened to me and I'd be okay once everything was over. But once I started the car wash, everything I convinced myself of just fucking crumbled. My plan that I'd be alright crumbled. My thoughts of I can manage the situation crumbled. I crumbled. The entire time I was physically washing my car, I was uncontrollably bawling my eyes out. The thought that this piece here once was a part of a person and I'm just washing it off as though it used to be a bug broke me. After getting home and sleeping the little bit I could, everything just feels wrong. My 1-year-old making me smile at how loving she is felt wrong. My fiance consoling me and trying to distract me felt wrong. Being able to pet my dogs felt wrong. Me not being on the side of the road and not being stuck forever to that spot of road feels wrong. Existing at this very moment feels so indescribably wrong. All day, my family has been bombarding my phone trying to reach out, but I just can't handle being asked how I'm doing again. I feel wrong, and I can't even explain how wrong is an emotion, but wrong is all I can say. My mom tried to force me to go to an aviary with my family, but again, everything is wrong. The person I killed will never go to an aviary, so how can I just go like nothing happened? This was probably not the best thing I did today, but I just looked at my car and noticed all of the damage I didn't look close enough to see earlier this morning during the car wash. And I froze, just unable to move, unable to reconcile my feelings or thoughts, and everything just hit like I wash back at the car wash. And again, I just stood there sobbing uncontrollably. I don't know what to do. Everyone I've tried to talk to, family, therapists, police officers, all are telling me I did the best I could and try to help me cope, but right now at this moment, they are wrong. Everything is just wrong. And now let's get into the comments. And the top comment on this post is actually, I think, very informational and could be of use for everyone watching if you're ever in a horrible situation like the OP just listed and just told us about. But let's get into the comment. Someone says, this is going to sound like an insensitive troll post, but I swear it's not. Right now, if you're ruminating over what happened, your brain is hard coding the memories, and that could lead to PTSD. The way to stop this from happening is to download a copy of Tetris and start playing it to take your mind off of it. It will interfere with what your brain is trying to do and will greatly reduce your chance at getting PTSD from this. I'm not kidding. You can read about it here, and then the commenter lists a study, and then they continue saying, what happened was awful, but it doesn't need to haunt you forever. And then they continue saying, people are asking if it has to be Tetris or if any other games will work. I'm not an expert, but I think Tetris is the perfect game for this because no two games are alike. The rules are understood immediately. Its core mechanic is two-dimensional image rotation that forces you to envision something other than the traumatic images, and there's a time limit on your thinking. There's no time to ruminate because the next piece is already on its way. Classic Tetris can't be won, only lost. So it has a natural hook to continue playing. And I just thought that was so interesting and also just a great kind of piece of information for everyone watching. If God forbid something this horrible happens to you, it's a way to reduce the likelihood of PTSD is by playing Tetris, which is very, very interesting. And honestly, a lot of people in the comments do say it helped them because it's supposedly recommended by some therapists immediately after something traumatic happens, which I've never heard of before, but seems kind of legit. I mean, it kind of makes sense. It just takes your mind off of it and your brain won't, like the commenter said, hard code the images into your brain, so you're less likely to get PTSD. Very interesting. And then the OP even replies to this saying, thank you, downloaded the game last night after falling asleep. I believe the game allowed my brain to stop replaying the images enough to where I was able to sleep for at least 3 hours. And yeah, what happened to the OP is just so unlucky and horrible. I mean, it's not the OP's fault that they were driving down the road at that time when the motorcycle fell off or was laying in the road. I mean, it's just horrible. And it's just a complete freak accident. And it's not the OP's fault to have to endure this pain and this, mental toll. And now let's get into one more comment because these comments are very good at, telling the OP and just in general how to process traumatic experiences. So this person says, as someone who has killed intentionally at war and sent people to die, I can tell you that it is perfectly okay to not be okay. You are going to have feelings that will sometimes feel overwhelming. The important thing is to feel them. Be angry at yourself. Be angry at the world. Most of it all, it is okay to be angry at the motorcyclist. You'll feel all of this at different times. And you know what? That is okay too. This is a process, and it will take time. Just don't shut down. Trying to push these feelings away will do irreparable harm to you. All of the feelings are valid in their own time. Guilt will kill you slowly or fast, but it will kill you. Accept what you have done and find the grace to eventually forgive yourself. It is not going to be easy, but keep talking and keep feeling. And people keep saying talking is very important. And I just think what the two things we just read were very interesting, and it could be just some good information to keep in the back of your mind if you ever experience something traumatic. Tetris after something can help your brain process it and not really remember it as well, which I guess is good. And kind of confronting the feelings and confronting the thoughts is also good. Don't try to push it away, because I think it'll rear its ugly head eventually. But this was just a horrible situation that the OP had to go with or deal with. And I mean, not really confession, but kind of. I mean, the OP killed someone, but it's just not the OP's fault at all. Just such a freak accident that's so horrible. Viewer submitted confession. Hey Snook, I'd like to remain completely anonymous for this, and I appreciate you understanding. A few years ago, I worked for a moving company and took a lot of pride in my job. I was reliable, consistent, and put in the effort to the point where I was being considered for a promotion. There were two of us in line for it, myself and another employee, who I'll refer to as M. Around the time the promotion was discussed, I became aware that M was an undocumented worker and that the company owner was paying him under the table. This put me in an uncomfortable position, as it involved both employment practices and immigration laws. After giving it some thought, I reported the situation to the appropriate authorities. A few days later, M was no longer working at the company. He left quietly, without explanation, and that was the last I heard of him. Not long after, I was offered the promotion. No one at the company knew that I had made the report, and I never spoke about it. From a legal standpoint, I followed the proper process. Still, it's a situation I think about from time to time. Not out of regret for following the law, but because of the human impact decisions like that can have. I hope M is doing well and was able to find proper stability elsewhere. Thank you for reading this, Snook. You do a lot for your community, and it doesn't go unnoticed. OP's gaming addiction costs him everything. And just a quick note before we get into this one, with those not familiar with the game itself, Star Citizen is an in-development multiplayer, space trading, and combat simulation game. It's been in development since 2012. It uses almost entirely crowdfunding for costs, and as such has players buy in-game spaceships for real money, with the cheapest being $45. And some ship packages having a price of up to $48,000 according to one article I saw. Some of these ships aren't in game yet and are considered, quote, concept ships, essentially pre-ordering in-game items. Many people consider this game to be a scam based on the amount of time it's been in development, missed development milestones, delays, and the exorbitant prices of some of its contents. And the first post the OP made is actually deleted by the moderators and we can't see it, but from context I've seen online, basically the OP made two posts saying he spent nearly $5,000 on the game and needs help. But let's get into the comments. Someone says, pay back what you owe immediately and don't rack up debt. And the OP says, but I need the new spaceships. And then someone else replies saying, so your girlfriend literally left you because you bought so many ships to the point she had enough of it and dumped you? Honestly, bud, I'd do the same if I was in her shoes. And so off the bat, OP's in a bad place. I mean, this isn't really a spiral. It seems like he's already, on the downward trajectory and has a bad addiction. Someone else says, if trolling, good job. If serious, stop. These things aren't real, and some folks have more money than they need so they can buy things like JPEGs. All you need is a starter. Play the game and earn them in-game. IAE FOMO hits hard by design, but these ships will still be there and still be earnable in-game. And I didn't even know that, so why would you waste so much money just buying the ships? I guess you're just impatient. And then the OP says, I'm wing commander now. I don't know how I got here. I can't pay my rent this month. Jeez, man. He already can't pay his rent. Someone else says, from every comment you made, this one is the most disturbing. All of us commenters don't know you. We don't know your relationship or family background. It is hard for us to judge your situation, but you spending money you do not have is a very serious sign. This, more than anything else, is a sign of addiction that even a stranger on the internet can spot. I see many people have suggested therapy, but I know that is a huge step for an addict. I would suggest that you, at the very least, find people to talk to that can understand your urges. There are many good self-help group projects around addiction in general. Start by going to a group and just listening and maybe telling your story. Even if you don't believe any of us that you have a problem, take the fact that you don't have any money for rent as a sign to take the off-ramp before not only your relationship unravels, it can't hurt to go talk to someone who understands. Take care, OP, and know that you can beat this. And so, off the bat, the OP is already in the depths of addiction with spending money on this game. He can't even pay his rent, and seemingly he seems like he's gonna break up with his girlfriend, or his girlfriend's gonna leave him. And just bad situation already. And then the OP makes a post saying, update on my situation, posted November 26th, 2023, and the post reads as follows. Follow up to my previous post because maybe you don't believe me. My girlfriend is pissed about how much I spent on ships last week, and she said she may actually leave and went back to her parents. I had to tell her I ruined my credit, and we can't get a new apartment this year till I fix it. Credit is too bad to rent in New York City at our salary. I kind of wish this was a joke, but I have a genuine addiction. This week, I've accumulated over 5,000 in pledges. I have no idea what I'm doing. Please help. I don't know what 5,000 in pledges is, but I guess that's a big deal. And then someone in the comments says, request refunds from support and seek some professional help with your impulse control. There's nothing that anyone here will be able to help you with directly. Someone else says, CIG can't help either. It was all gray market purchases. And then the OP says, what's the point? She's walking out. And then the commenter says, the point is you have a fucking problem that is literally overtaking your real life. Get fucking help. Holy fuck. You posted in other subreddits about how she is actually leaving you, but not before you update your Star Citizen status. You are never going to get above this unless you get help. Delete your account and take things fucking seriously. Your wake-up call was the first incident of spending your money on this game. I would call it mental health problems, but you stay down, fix the issue a bit, then did it again. And now, single as fuck, you still haven't stopped or gotten help. And then another commenter says, ask for a refund. Number 2, go get professional help. If you suffer from addiction, it's not only going to be Star Citizen. Get help now so you can learn to manage it. Number 3, inform your girlfriend of the steps you have taken and tell her that she means more to you than the game. That is insanity. Do the same thing and expect a different outcome. Someone else says, look at his post history. They were all gray market purchases. Dude is beyond fucked. And then the OP makes an update saying, this is the fleet that cost me and my girlfriend, posted on November 26th, 2023. And then he posts a picture of the fleet for everyone watching that plays Star Citizen. Is this good? I don't know. I don't play that game. And then the OP says, she's nowhere near as excited as I am about the Astara. And from that sentence, it seems like he's being he's playing with it. He's sarcastic. I can't tell if he genuinely wants help or it's just kind of back and forth. He's like, she's nowhere as excited as I am about this thing. It seems kind of sarcastic and playful almost. So is he really down bad yet? Or is he not really hurting for the money? You know what I mean? But let's get into his next post. It was titled, am I the asshole for breaking a needless promise after fixing a situation? And then the post reads as follows. A while back, my significant other and I hit a rough patch. I'm an avid player of Star Citizen, and admittedly, I tend to go overboard with it. A few months ago, during a sale, I impulsively spent our saved down payment for a house on virtual spaceships. Our saved down payment for a house. Holy shit. Understandably, she was furious and temporarily left. I realized my mistake, apologized, and took on an extra job to replenish our savings. I'm close to restoring our financial status to its original state, though it will take another 6 months to fully recover, not accounting for my personal debt. As part of the reconciling, she asked me not to purchase any more spaceships for 6 months. Initially, this seemed reasonable, but over time, I've come to view it as somewhat excessive. Despite this, I recently bought a few more spaceships, and she discovered it, now considering leaving me for good. I thought that by nearly restoring the savings I had spent, I made amends for my actions. I genuinely enjoy collecting spaceships in the game. She's also concerned about my credit score and other financial issues, but I'm confident I can rectify those in the coming years, given that I've already managed to recover most of our savings through extra work. I'm struggling to understand if I'm in the wrong for breaking what now seems like an arbitrary promise, or if her reaction to leave over what I consider my primary hobby is unjustified. And now let's get into some comments, and someone says, "Here, I fixed it for you. I'm a professional gambler. One night, I gambled all of our mutual savings for a down payment away. She was pissed and we agreed on me working extra shifts to pay back the savings and not to gamble for at least 6 months. I paid back the savings and now gambling again like nothing happened, and I didn't betray her trust by gambling our savings away in the first place. Now she doesn't trust me anymore and wants to leave me, and I have no idea why. Also, my credit sucks now and I still have my personal debts while spending money on gambling again. Why doesn't she want a future with me anymore? What else can she want with a dude with debt, bad credit, and a gambling addiction who already gambled away your mutual savings once? I'm a catch, but she somehow doesn't see it this way? Why?" So this commenter is obviously kind of replacing the gaming addiction with gambling, and it makes it seem kind of worse. And then the OP has a interesting response to this, saying, "It is not gambling because I own the ships," which is a weird way to rationalize it. But then the guy comments saying, "You're gambling on their resale value, unless you have no intention of selling at all, in which case they aren't an investment in any helpful way here. You've mentioned in other responses that you see them as an investment, and they contribute nothing practical to your life. The very best you can hope for is a morale boost for time spent on your hobbies. And while it's nice to have that, you've gone so far over the line that you've risked and probably lost your relationship. You know full well you must do. Nobody can be this deluded." And I agree. The OP just seems so just kind of delusional. He's like, why does my girlfriend not see this as a hobby? Because you spent your fucking down payment on a house on video games. I mean, anybody would leave their significant other after that. Or not everybody, but a significant amount of people would. I mean, imagine you work your ass off, you're saving up with your significant other, and then boom, spends all the money on a video game? How does this guy not see that he's the problem here? And then another commenter says, "Wait, you spent $15,000 on digital spaceships in a game that were to be used for a house down payment behind the back of your spouse? After she discovered it, you told her that you'd replenish the money and stop buying ships for 6 months? You did get a job, and before both conditions were met, you already bought another goddamn spaceship? And you have the audacity to pretend they are investments in one comment and say that you would never sell them in another? Which is it, dipshit? Let me tell you, it's going to be a divorce. Please never reproduce and get your addiction under control before ever getting another girlfriend. Forget the judgment, in case it wasn't clear enough." And then someone else says, $15,000 on a video game? He's lucky she didn't stab him. Someone else says he buried the lead too. If you read his other posts, he dropped another 5K on virtual shit. And then the OP makes another post saying, 31 male, can I rebuild trust with my girlfriend after gaming addiction ruined our apartment plans? And then the post reads as follows: 31 male facing a crisis I never expected. My girlfriend and I had plans to move to a better apartment, but I jeopardized our dream by spending our savings on Star Citizen, a video game. This incident has made me realize that I might be battling a gaming addiction and impulsive spending. Despite her initial forgiveness and a clear agreement to not buy more in-game items for 6 months while replenishing our savings, I failed to stick to our plan. This breach of trust led to a major argument, especially after I refused her suggestion to sell my gaming account. Consequently, she's left, and we haven't spoken since. Oh boy. This situation has hit me hard, making me see how my gaming habit has turned from a hobby into a destructive force in my life. I'm struggling with the self-realization that my actions have not only damaged my relationship, but are also affecting my financial stability, as my credit score is now in jeopardy. The most painful part is recognizing how much I love her and the extent of the turmoil I'm in. I'm earnestly seeking advice on how to address my addiction and possibly salvage my relationship. And what I think is just crazy, before moving on to the comments, that he's just now kind of realizing that. It took her leaving him to even begin to think, oh, how do I get better? He hasn't listened to any of the comments suggesting get therapy, go to some sort of addiction counseling or whatever, talk to anybody. And now that he finally left her, now he's like, okay, I guess I'll get help. I guess I have an addiction. Like, it's so delayed. Like, he never even realized or wanted to take the advice that people gave him earlier. So what says he's going to take it now, you know? But let's get into some comments. Someone says, so let me get this straight. Number 1, you stole her money to buy Pixel spaceships. Number 2, she forgave you as long as you stopped buying Pixel spaceships. Number 3, you kept buying Pixel spaceships. Number 4, you refused to fix the problem by selling off your Pixel spaceships. Number 5, she realizes you love Pixel spaceships more than her and left for good. I mean, dude, I'm sorry, but she's well shut of you. She's never coming back, and if she did, she'd still resent you. The childish response would be to keep sinking money you don't have into Star Citizen. The moral response would be to sell your account and send her the money that you owe her after you stole her savings. Someone else says, dude, I'm looking at your post history. You're in full-on denial about how you're spending/gaming addiction. You 1000% have an issue after you spent $15,000 in 6 months on optional purchases for a mobile game. And I looked it up. It's not a mobile game. It's a PC game. So I don't know why this commenter said that. But then they said, there's no way you can salvage the relationship without first addressing this issue. And even then, the chances are low that she'll take you back. If anything, you need to do this for yourself and your future. Do you want to have bad credit /be alone /be in debt to a game 10 years from now? You need to go cold turkey with this game. Sell your account /ships and lock yourself out of your account and go to therapy. And then the OP makes another post saying, resisting the urge to buy more ships. These repeat sales are making it quite difficult to leave the old credit card holstered. I can't be the only one. I do like that we get each a second chance though. And then some people in the comments say, don't buy more ships, dude. And then the OP said, I didn't. Someone else says, this profile has to be a troll at this point. If not, holy fuck, get actual help, like a therapist or a psych. Someone else says, I think so too. Looking at his fleet pick from 2 weeks ago, surely he's not missing any ship either, flight ready or concept. And then the OP says, missing a cutter. I don't really know what that terminology means. And then the OP makes a final update saying, hey, I ruined my life over a video game. It's all starting to come together for me. I essentially ruined my life over a video game. I'm in massive unrecoverable debt. My girlfriend left me. My parents are refusing to speak to me. I have constant anxiety. My life is falling apart. I'm going to lose my job and I might lose my apartment. I haven't spent any money on games in a bit. I don't know. Sorry, this is so disorganized. I just need to vent. And then the OP makes one final post about this titled $61,000 in credit debt with no end in sight. And sadly, the post was taken down by moderators, so we can't see the details, but just from the title alone, holy shit. He got it up to $61,000 in credit debt. Credit card debt is so dangerous. I mean, the interest on those is insane. That $61,000 can compile into something horrific if he doesn't start paying it off. But that is just such a tragic story in spiral. And that was posted about a year ago or 2 years ago. And the OP's account has been deleted since then, so we have no idea what he's up to. Hopefully he was able to sell his account for a decent chunk of change and kind of bite away a lot of that $61,000. But from his habits that we can obviously see here, he wasn't making any sort of effort to help recover from his addiction and impulse spending and video game addiction. I mean, it's just horrible. I mean, he lost everything over a silly video game. I mean, video games are fun, but to ruin your life over them, yeah, that's just so tragic. And now let's get into some comments on this thread. Someone says, the scary thing is that his comments indicate that he clearly hasn't hit rock bottom yet. Addiction is scary, and he's ruined his and his girlfriend's life. And now he has no girlfriend and just crippling debt and a Star Citizen account, I guess. Hope it keeps him warm, comfortable, and housed at night. And then someone comments under this commenter saying, agreed. In the January 11th post, it's all passive. The gaming addiction ruined the apartment plans. Not his gaming addiction, and definitely not OP himself. It was just a random gaming addiction that came out of nowhere to destroy his life. And then someone else comments underneath that saying, yeah, this reads as a horror story. From the perspective of having spent a lot of time with gambling addicts and how their brain was working during their addiction, this dude clearly has a long way to fall. God help him. And I mean, just after reading those comments, you can see that everyone kind of agrees that it's not going to stop anytime soon because he didn't seek out for help once. And I mean, it's not going to just stop magically. And with just reading all his posts over the years, I mean, this was over years, like he didn't seem to want to get help once. He just kept blaming and saying, how can I recover things, but kept doing what was ruining things. I mean, just so sad. And yeah, like I said, it's been about 1.5 years, 2 years since these posts were made or the final post was made. So hopefully he hasn't kept falling. Hopefully he learned from his mistakes and started to recover and got his life back together, but who knows really. My adultery ruined my life. I hate myself for it. I'm writing this with a lot of pain in mind. I don't expect people to give me sympathy. I just wanted to share my story so that people could take a lesson. So please, before you cheat on your husband / wife / partner, think about what you are giving up for a few minutes of pleasure. I, 37 male, married my wife Annie, 35 female, about 13 years ago. We dated for 3 years and tied the knot. Our marriage was great. We were really happy. Suddenly, she becomes pregnant. I know it is kind of our fault because we didn't use protection every time. We decided to keep the baby, and our son, 10 male, was born. I thought our family was complete, but things drastically changed. My wife was always busy with our son. She used to be this fit girl who was always radiant, but she just looked like a zombie to me. She didn't care about how she looked while she was in public. I started to feel resentment towards her. Before I did anything stupid, I talked to her and gave her an ultimatum that if she doesn't go back her normal shape, I would leave her. She started to cry and say that she's always exhausted and doesn't have time. I told her I would help her as much as I can, but looking back now, I did the bare minimum. The trouble came when she was again pregnant after 5 years. All the hard work she has done was down the drain. She gained a lot of weight. I avoided her. Just looking at her made me sick. I was either at the gym or at the bar. I was looking for excuses to not come home. That's when I met a girl at my gym. She was hot and had a nice body. She was also very much younger than I was, 20 female. We started talking. I felt alive again. I felt like someone is here in front of me who appreciates me a lot. A few days later, I went to her house and we hooked up. It was like a drug to me. I didn't realize that I was becoming more and more distant with my family, so just like every cheater, I got caught. My wife found out that I was hooking up with someone else. She broke down in tears right in front of me, and she just kept repeating, "How could you do this to me? You broke our family." At that time, I did something bad. I'm still ashamed of it. I yelled at her and called her a hag. I told her if she looked after herself, I wouldn't have cheated. That it is all her fault. My wife started laughing. It confused me. She said if I helped her, she might have had the time. I was never home and outside fucking some random girl. She told me she wanted a divorce right there. I was really hateful towards her and said, "Fine, you can, but you really think any man would ever want you with your baggage, my kids?" I could see it broke her and crushed her. I wanted that at the time. The divorce was settled. She only wanted the house. We shared the custody of the kids. The divorce felt like a relief. I could be with my girlfriend whenever I wanted to. But that is when I saw the changes. Whenever I was home, the house was not clean. There would be dishes in the sink for days. I remember looking at them and calling Annie, but Annie didn't live in my house. It became tougher when it was my weekend to have the kids. I realized I knew jack shit about my kids. My son was a picky eater. My daughter was still very little. She would cry a lot. It was exhausting. No matter how much I try, my son would always complain about everything and tell me that's not how his mother did it. That wasn't the end of the problems. Things with my girlfriend became bland way too soon. My wife would always have a home-cooked meal ready for me, but my girlfriend is just happy to have leftover or frozen pizza for all she cares. I was sick of it. Intimate life was also very boring. My ex-wife was really great at being intimate. I never had any bad intimate experiences with her, but my girlfriend lacked imagination. Also, she has really one-dimensional personality. My son really picked on things. He started to resent me. He was rude towards my girlfriend. My girlfriend would abuse him by calling him a brat. The last straw was when my son yelled at me and said that he hated me and my girlfriend would never be his mommy. It struck me like a thunder. Things ended with her right there. On the other hand, Annie started to change a lot. She lost a lot of weight. She looked relaxed and like her old self. I once complimented her that she looked good. I only got a cold "thank you" back. I got to know from a mutual friend of ours that she would sometimes say that the divorce made her realize she deserved better. And things got better because she had some time for herself. Before that, she had to clean up my mess, and now there's hardly any mess left. I was hit with another realization that I treated her badly. I never helped her when she needed my help the most. Annie understood me. She was kind and passionate. She was just going through a rough phase and I kicked her to the curb. I went into depression. I asked Annie if she'd give me a chance. She said no. I don't blame her. From my son, I got to know she started dating an old friend of hers. My son loves him. My daughter calls him Dada. I tried my best for my daughter to call me that, but she didn't. I met them together at a business convention. That man had his arms around my Annie and was showing her off. I was angry. I felt this rage inside of me. Later that night, I drank a lot and started to call Annie. I spewed nonsense that her new boy toy is nothing but a weak man that is dating a pathetic single mom like her. I know this because the next day, she came to my house along with my parents. My parents ripped me apart and said to stay the hell away from Annie. I lost my kids, my wife, and I already lost my parents after the divorce. I never felt so alone. I wake up on my bed empty. Annie would always cuddle me early in the morning. I missed her warmth. Things between my son didn't improve. He probably knows why me and his mother aren't together. A few months ago, Annie dropped a bomb. She said that she was pregnant. That was the moment I knew I lost her forever. From that moment, whenever I went to her house to get my kids, I would see how her boyfriend basically worships her and takes care of her needs. If I wasn't so stupid or arrogant and helped her, cherished her, we would still be a happy family. I guess this is my punishment. I have to see another man play family with my Annie and kids. So please, please don't be like me. If you really cannot, just divorce or break up with that person. I have hurt a lot of people because of my selfishness. And then the OP gives us an update saying, it has been 2 months since I posted on this place. I know I deserve all the hate comments I got. I know I am a piece of shit. I deserve to be miserable. And to all those saying it is rage bait and that I am a troll, I am not. I needed a place to vent anonymously. I needed people to hear me. I knew that I would get hate messages. I know I deserve every ounce of hate you guys have for me and even more, but I know I fucked up. I know I was an evil person for what I did. This will always have a huge hole in my heart. I know I have to carry this guilt throughout my life, but to those who said I should get some help, I did. I've been going to therapy for a long time now. Therapy has helped me a lot. It made me a bit lighter, but still I had guilt and shame in my heart. I know I cannot go back in time and fix anything, but I am now trying my best so that I can be a better person than I was a few years ago. The first thing I did was begged for forgiveness from Annie. I told her I knew I was an asshole. She didn't deserve the way I treated her. She is a kind and sweet person. She always has been. And this is my life's biggest regret, that I treated her so horrible, and all I want now is to be a good father to her son. And I wished her and her new family good luck. I know she picked a better man, and I hope she gets everything she deserves. She said she forgives me, but she doesn't want any kind of relationship with, unless, of course, it is about the kids. I also sat down with my son and said sorry to him too. I am an idiot that I didn't realize this whole thing put him and his sister in a weird position. I told both of them sorry individually. My son is still on the fence if he wants to forgive, but I try to be a better dad for them. I now understand I may never have the same kind of relationship with him, but I just want to do my duties as a father. I do not want them to become like me. Whenever they come to my place, I try to be more attentive towards them. My daughter does call me Papa now. I take them to get some ice cream or simply just on a fishing trip. My son likes to draw. I got him some art supplies. I know this will not buy me his love, but I want him to have everything. He has been a little more open towards me. He sometimes asks for my help with his homework. Annie and I also decided that we should take our kids to therapy. They have been through a lot because of me, and I accept the responsibility of the fallout. Lastly, I'm not thinking about dating anyone. I know I do not deserve love in any way, shape, or form. Moreover, I do not want to include any new person in my already messed up life. Maybe in a few years, but not now. Right now, I just want to focus on my kids. Thanks to all of you who gave me some advice. It helped, and thanks for listening. My husband told me he was trying to change, but it was just a lie. He's been lying to me this whole time. I thought he was cheating, but it was even worse. Originally posted to r/true off my chest, and the post reads as follows. Posting anonymously because I don't want anyone I know to find out what's going on with my marriage. I'm so embarrassed. When I was first married, my husband had no interest in gambling. When it started, it was just a few casual bets on football. It has gotten out of control. He doesn't just bet on his football team now, he bets on matches in other countries such as American football or baseball. He even bets on individual sports such as golf and Formula One. He gets angry at individual players if they don't do the things he needs to win his bet. It's more important than his team winning. I couldn't stand how much his gambling was costing us. At first, I thought he was cheating with the way he was acting. I was devastated when I found out he was betting. I wanted a divorce, but he begged me to stay and go to counseling. He said this was a wake-up call and that he would never gamble again. We are going to counseling together, and he's in individual counseling as well. He said he has stopped gambling, but he was lying the entire time. He has been in trouble with the police. They told me police in a different country were investigating posts from social media that threatened a player there. And it was traced back to my husband. My husband lost a bet and blamed that player. I'm not giving him another chance. I'm moving out this week and I'll be seeking a divorce. When I confronted him, he told me he never stopped gambling and was just saying what I wanted to hear. I can't believe how stupid and naive I was. And then a commenter says, "Don't you dare blame yourself. You did the right thing. You gave him a second chance, he blew it, not you. Never feel guilty for being a sympathetic and reasonable person. Shame on him for failing you as a partner. And shame on him for being a piece of shit. Maybe now that the police are involved, this may really be a wake-up call he needed. However, you are not obligated to give him a third chance, and good for you for not doing so. Now give yourself some grace you gave him and put your life back together how you want it. Make yourself happy." And then the OP replies to his commenter saying, "Maybe now that the police are involved, this may really be a wake-up call he needed." And the OP replies to that saying, "I was so embarrassed when I found out what he did and that the police are involved. My husband doesn't seem to share my feelings. He wasn't embarrassed or bothered by this at all. I found out that gambling on sports is becoming more and more of a problem. I never thought it would happen to me." And then another commenter says, "I'm really sorry you're going through this. It's an addiction that's going to need far more than just couples counseling. Recovery is possible, but you got to do what you need to protect yourself in your financial present and future as well. With how it sounds like he's escalating. He may find himself in major debt, or even worse, if he doesn't actually get help. I will be the rare one to say, don't rush to a divorce just yet, but starting to reserve and secure finances on your own that he does not have access to should be your first and top priority. Make sure you start having money in your own account away from his or a shared one. Change your passwords on your bank accounts and card information, and don't tell him them. Do tell him that you are separating yourself financially though. Take over bills, check your credit scores, and make sure he hasn't dragged you or your money to his addiction. Then after that, you can start issuing more boundaries and even ultimatums about him getting help, or you will walk for good. Counseling and individual therapy for both of you would be good as well. I know it's a lot, but you can at least then say you tried everything, and then if you do officially divorce and leave him to his own devices, you will have your own finances available and established already anyway. And then the OP replies saying, my husband was going to individual counseling and I had set boundaries. We were also in couples counseling. None of it made a difference. I will not be giving him another chance. He already had one. As I said in my post, I will be seeking a divorce. There is nothing my husband or anyone else can say to make me change my mind. And then the commenter replies to the OP saying, I hear you. That's why I said he needs actual help with the gambling and to go to treatment for that and Gamblers Anonymous, not just counseling. Your feelings and decision is completely valid. Nobody should fault you here. All addictions affect far more than just the addict. I just know how hard it is to decide divorce. I hope you're able to live a stress-free and financially stable life, as well as heal from the heartbreak you've experienced. My ex-husband was a drug addict who became extremely abusive in every way possible. I asked him to choose rehab or divorce. He made a third opening on cheating on me, so I chose divorce for him. I know it's not the same kind of addiction, but you get the point. You're making the right choice for your life. Good luck, and hopefully he's able to break the addiction before he ruins anyone's life, especially his own. And then the OP replied saying, I'm sorry about what happened with your ex-husband, and I hope you're doing well now. The counselor my husband was seeing wasn't the same one we went to for our marriage counseling. She is a counselor for people with a gambling addiction. She also had him going to a support group, but he still lied to me and kept gambling the entire time. Once he admitted he was only saying what I wanted to hear, I knew there was nothing else I could do to save our marriage. And then the OP gives us an update nearly 1.5 months later, saying, update to my husband, told me he was trying to change, but it was all a lie. He's been lying to me the whole time. I thought he was cheating, but it was even worse. I moved out a month ago. I'd already told him I was going to be seeking a divorce. He doesn't want a divorce, even though he outright admitted to me that he kept lying and only said what I wanted to hear. On top of that, he wasn't at all embarrassed or bothered about being in trouble with the police. There is no way I can stay married to him. The divorce process formally began this past week, and I was clear with him about not wanting to see him or have contact ever again. I am trying to move on. Thank you to everybody who left encouraging comments for me last time. That really did help. I did receive multiple messages saying I was being far too sensitive or a stupid woman, but I just deleted them and I've turned off the chat feature now. I appreciate everybody who was encouraging. I never thought something like this would happen to me. My husband didn't start betting until a few years into our marriage. Back then it was casual and only on football. Then he started betting on other sports such as American football and basketball, and it got even worse. I never expected anything like this to happen to me, and I feel so naive and stupid for believing he was trying to change. It was all a lie. As a child, I permanently altered another child's life, and it eats me alive even 15 years later. Hey Snook, I've been following along with your channel for over 1.5 years now, and I love what you do. Your videos keep me focused throughout the day, help me when I can't sleep, and I love the community that's formed around your channel. And I just have to say thank you so much for watching. It means the world, and I'm glad my videos can get you through your day. And yeah, the community here is great. You guys are the best. And this confession is something that's been eating me alive every single day and night for over 15 years now, and I'm ready to at least talk about it and put it into words. Whether or not this stays anonymous is fully up to you. And this will remain anonymous. If you guys do send in a confession, they all remain anonymous. So yeah, don't worry about me leaking a name or anything. Everything is completely anonymous. And let's get into it. For starters, this happened when I was 12 years old. I grew up in the kind of family where everyone was reliant on blue-collar work to make a living, mostly construction/contracting, as well as landscaping, building, automotive work, etc. By the time I could walk and talk, I'd always been on a construction site, helping in the garage or learning about tools/equipment. I thought I was so much more progressed than kids my age and older, seeing how I knew how to do so much stuff already before they could. I learned a lot about safety in regards to power tools, being safe in unfinished homes with hazards everywhere, things like that. By the time I was 10, I worked every day with my dad and my grandpa after school while they ran their construction business, always grabbing tools, cleaning up, learning how to use power saws, drills, and other handheld tools. By the time I was 12, young me became pretty cocky in my abilities. I had rebuilt a dirt bike, mowed lawns in the spring and summer, used weed whackers, chainsaws, hedge trimmers, the works. By this time, I worked full-time in the summers as a sort of apprentice to my grandfather to remodel homes, do repairs, and a multitude of different construction projects. During the school year, I would work after school and on weekends with my dad doing similar work, but more landscaping than construction. Long rant, I know, but this is to set the stage as to why I felt confident in my abilities I had at the time. During the spring of 2012, my family lived in central Colorado. In the spring is when we get the most snow. I had always spent winter/spring making money by shoveling snow, clearing ice off walkways or driveways, and moving the huge snowdrift piles from snow plows out of the way from people's houses. This was also a year after my parents split, and with my parents not being on cordial terms in slightest due to what caused their situation, the garage at our house was still stacked to the brim with my dad's and grandfather's extra tools. That year, the snowfall was record-breaking. I believe in March, we got so snowed in we couldn't even open the front door. And for anyone who has ever spent hours upon hours shoveling snow, you'll know it's a lot of work. And being a kid, I was wore out and wanted to make more money faster so I could be inside sooner and play video games or draw. Well, that's where the snowblower comes in. My dad had bought a brand new Kubota snowblower with a twin stage blade that was 28 inches across. The thing was intimidating, sure, but my dad taught me how to use it the winter before because he was too drunk to bother with snowblowing. I decided that I would use said snowblower to clear people's driveways, walkways, and the sidewalks as opposed to shoveling it all by hand. This led to me digging the snowblower out of the garage and fighting with the things piled and stacked around it to finally get it out. After maybe an hour of playing Tetris, scratching my mom's car, and knocking over God knows what in the process, it was out. My prepubescent brain could only think about one thing. Hell yeah, time to make some money. I started with our driveway, before anyone else's. I fought with starting the blower for longer than I'd like to admit. YouTube still didn't have instruction videos for everything, and I finally got it going. Trying to do it like my dad had shown me the year before, I managed to sloppily snow blow our entire driveway and sidewalk. 12-year-old me was elated, and I felt much more confident in this idea and this business plan because in my stupid, underdeveloped brain, I'm now a pro because I managed not to break anything or hurt myself. Stupid thought process, no doubt. This led to me drawing up a whole business model, and I was ready to take the neighborhood by storm. That night, I stayed up for hours making crude, hand-drawn flyers to stick in people's mailboxes or tape to their front doors. I watched late into the night how much it was snowing from the kitchen table while I made posters until I was fighting to keep my eyes open. I went to school the next day early, having to walk a mile through knee-deep snow with the biggest money-making idea ever really puts a pep in your step. I gave flyers to my teachers, other kids to give their parents, hell, even the custodian got one. And I was wearing a shit-eating grin ear to ear thinking about how rich I'm gonna be. It snowed the whole day. I even begged to go outside for recess because they weren't letting us to check the conditions. When school finally let us out, I peeled out of class like a bat out of hell with my backpack jammed full of flyers. On my walk home, I put one into every mailbox I passed and put them on the windows of cars that were buried in the snowdrift from the plows. By the time I made it home, I had gotten rid of at least 40 of them, and I sat waiting eagerly by the landline phone well into the evening. I even begged my mom to not answer the phone if someone called because it could be a customer. This is probably a great time to throw in the fact that my mother, who wasn't really present as a parent or as emotionally involved as most, now going through a messy split with my dad, they had been together for over 20 years, Had no clue that I was doing this. She just thought I was still shoveling snow for the neighbors. I waited late but the evening, hoping for a phone call from literally anyone. I thought at first people are having dinner. They're probably busy. Then I thought that nobody had bothered to check their mail yet. By the time 8 p.m. rolled around, I was discouraged and angry, feeling like my plan wasn't going to work. So that night, I decided to take a more direct approach. In my mind, I concluded that most people don't work on Saturdays, so people will be home. So what I'll do is go door to door with the snowblower to offer to clear people's driveways. And there's no possible way they could turn me down because I have a snowblower and could get it done fast. And they can enjoy their weekend in their pajamas while I'm the one freezing my ass off. So that night, I went into the garage, brought the snowblower close to the door, filled it with gas that had been sitting for God knows how long, and covered it with a blue tarp, hoping my mom wouldn't notice it moved when she went back to work in the morning. That Saturday morning at 8 a.m. sharp, I heard the garage open and my mom leave for work. Although I had already been awake waiting anxiously for her to leave, I jumped out of bed and threw on all of my snow gear, ate my daily breakfast of dry and clumpy maple brown sugar oatmeal, and ran to the garage to pull out the snowblower. I thought I should do our driveway first, but realized if I was going to secretly use the snowblower, I'd have to do it very last so my mom wouldn't know I took it out. Stupid logic, I know, but I thought I was being so smart. So I rolled it out to the street and started making my way throughout the neighborhood. I started banging on doors to meet people that were not thrilled to be woken up to a shivering snot-nosed kid on their porch first thing in the morning on a Saturday. So they were pretty quick to blow me off. I think it was the 5th or 6th door that I knocked on my street that someone agreed to let me clear their driveway for $10. Huge money when you're 12. And I was over the moon. I started immediately and fought to lug this heavy-ass snowblower that was as big as me into their driveway and started. It definitely didn't look the best, but hey, it beat shoveling for 2 hours. I did this house without any incident. The nice older couple that lived there paid me, and I was on my way. Throughout the day, I did 6 more houses just like this. At one point, I ran out of gas and had to run home to get the gas jug to fill up the blower again, and kept trudging along through the neighborhood doing this. Later in the afternoon, around 3:15ish, yes, I remember I've worn a watch my whole life and I'm very OCD compulsive about knowing the time and timing things, I passed one of the neighboring houses on the street where a ton of kids were outside. I knew most of the kids there because at least 4 of them were siblings and lived there. We always rode bikes and played in the drainage ditches together, so I, being cocky and with an ego bigger than my little body could handle, wanted to show off the fact that I could run this big, scary machine by myself. I started it to show them how it works and how cool it was that I could spray snow 10 feet away. At the time, they were building a fort, and having extra snow to build it in was a no-brainer. So I said I wanted to snow blow their driveway and blow all the snow into the yard beside it so we could have a huge fort and we could play in the snow after. I started off the sidewalk so I could maneuver the snowblower easier. And as I was doing this, multiple kids from this family were standing by, wanting to get blasted by the huge shower of snow that would come out of the chute. Everyone was laughing, running around, throwing snowballs, and we were all yelling at each other about how fun this was over the loud engine in the snowblower. Everything seemed to be going fine. I started working my way up the driveway with the blower. All the snow was going to the side of the yard where the fort was as according to plan, and all the other kids there were loving getting blasted by the snow and piling snow together to add the fort. At this time, a kid younger than me, let's call him John, was running back and forth across the driveway while I was running the snowblower. If anyone here has used one before, you'll know it rolls automatically when the throttle handle is engaged. As he was doing this, I was preoccupied with trying to keep the blower in a straight line, watching the snow spray all over the lawn, and trying to hold on tight to the machine. Honestly, what happened next was so shocking and so anxiety-inducing in the moment, and even now, that it gets a little blurry. Somehow, some way, as John was running back and forth across the driveway, he fell in the snow right in front of the machine. I only noticed it when I saw his hands and head on the ground. When I saw this, I let go of the throttle as well as the blade control, and all I could hear was him screaming and the motor running on the machine. I've never had such a gut-sinking feeling in my entire life, even to this day, and I've seen some awful shit. Everyone stopped what they were doing and ran over to John, who is now laying on the ground with his leg wrapped up inside the snow blower blade. I was screaming to the point where I started hyperventilating. I shut off the motor by hitting the kill switch on the side of it and started panicking. I tried to pull his leg out and turn the blades, but anyone who's ever used one knows they lock in place when the motor isn't on. At this point, everyone is in hysterics, and one of John's siblings ran inside to get their mom. She comes running out, screaming and justifiably horrified to see her youngest kid's leg wrapped up in a snow blower blade. We all sat practically shitting our pants for the next 10 minutes watching John's mom try and wiggle and maneuver his leg out of the snow blower blade. He's screaming and crying and saying how much it hurts, and all I can think about is how my mom is going to actually kill me. I'm screaming I'm sorry over and over again. The other kids are yelling at me. John's mom is screaming at me, and the whole ordeal has me stuck in fight or flight mode. After about 15 minutes of wrestling John's leg out of the machine, his mom finally gets him free, and we can all visibly see his snow boot on his right foot has been cut open and looks very wet. After his mom handles it and grabs it with John screaming out in pain, we can see the blood on her hands, and at this point, everyone is crying and I'm dry heaving, unable to puke up my oatmeal from breakfast. From here, I watch as John Moms picks him up, practically throws him into their car, and drives much faster than what would be safe on snowy roads down the street and out of the neighborhood, presumably to the emergency room. Right about now, I'm having a full-blown panic attack. All of John's siblings and the other neighborhood kids that were at their house are yelling at me, calling me horrible names, and are just trying to grab me. I grabbed the snowblower and I pushed it as hard and fast as I could back to the house. I even went the long way, hoping they wouldn't follow and know where I lived. Spoiler, I've known these kids for years, so they know which house is mine. Once I got home, I shoved the snowblower back into the garage, covered it with the same blue tarp from earlier, ran to the bathroom and vomited it all over myself and all over the floor. I spent the next few hours shaking and dry heaving and thinking about how I'm going to hide this from my mom. After at least an hour and a half worth of having a panic attack, I realized that I now need to do something to at least be in my mom's good graces right now. I started cleaning the house and started making dinner, hoping that she would come home, drink a whole bottle of wine, and pass out drunk. And this whole thing would blow over without her finding out. I spent the next few hours cleaning, peeking out the windows, hoping John's mom wasn't coming looking for me, and trying to get my story straight about what I did today. Eventually, my mom came home. I want to say it was around 7 p.m. at this point. I greeted her at the door, tried to be all nice and sweet like how kids act when they did something wrong, or if the principal is going to be calling home. And I swear, not even 20 minutes after she walked in, John's mom was at the front door. Hearing that door being pounded on and the doorbell being rung had me ready to puke once again. I tried to brush it off, telling my mom it's nobody, or like it was Mormons or something or someone trying to see something. But she opened the door anyways. Right there on our doorstep was John's mom, face red, eyes puffy from crying, and doing that stuttered breathing people do after they bawl. She absolutely tore into my mom. I'm sure the neighbors found out from her screaming well before it became the hot neighborhood gossip for the month. I remember my mom just standing there dumbfounded. I mean, who could blame her? I was sneaky, did something that seemed out of the realm of possibility for a little 12-year-old kid to be doing, and blatantly tried to cover it up. I remember my mom grabbing me by my hair and started wailing on me in front of John's mom. At this point, both my mom and John's mom are screaming at me, and I'm screaming from being hit so hard, it was all kind of blurry. My mom pushed me to the ground and went outside with John's mom, and I could hear the yelling through the door. I sat there on the floor and cried harder than I ever have. It turns out that when John's leg got caught in the snow, it broke his foot and damaged 2 of his toes so badly they had to be amputated. The fact that he was wearing bulky snow boots, multiple layers under thick snow pants, and the fact that kids are pretty bendy is the only reason he didn't lose his whole foot. Or worse, his whole leg. At least, that's what the doctors had told John's mom and family. I got the absolute beating of a lifetime that night, and one to match 2 days after from my dad for it. Still have the scars on my back and neck from it. And to this day, I've never seen my mom so animalistic from anger. John wasn't in school for a while, is what I heard. He was multiple grades behind me, and when I finally saw him again, he was in a huge cast from his knees to his toe, and was in a wheelchair, probably because he was too young to figure out crutches. and I avoided him like the plague. I spent the next year that we lived in the house taking every route possible to avoid walking, riding my bike or skateboard, or doing anything even remotely close to John's house. Anytime I'd see his siblings, they'd throw things at me, hurl insults, or chase me down. I practically lived in fear for an entire year of that family before we moved because our housing situation was also caught in the crossfire of my parents' divorce. Every time I'd see John outside his house, he hobbled along or walked with a very noticeable limp. I never got to apologize in a way that matters. I mean, hell, what 12-year-old kid could? And it ate me alive every single day, to the point where I was scared to go near his house, have any of his family members see him at the store, at school, or in the Greenbelt, and I had nightmares about it for years afterwards. Eventually, the snowblower was gotten rid of, along with tons of my dad's stuff, but every day I'd see it in the garage and just have this absolute gut-wrenching feeling. To this day, I still feel horribly guilty. I looked John up on Facebook a while back. He's got a kid now, and in a video with him and his fiance playing with their daughter, you can still see he walks with a slight limp. I doubt he'll ever see this or find this, but I just want him to know I'm genuinely sorry for the effect my stupidity and idiotic actions have had on his life. I was stupid to think I had the capacity, let alone the capabilities, to take on something like that. And even now, I think about him whenever I'm using any kind of tools or machinery in and outside of my job. Thanks for taking the time to read this. I know it was long and drawn out. Please be safe around tools, machines, or equipment. It only takes a split second to permanently alter or end someone's life, or even your own. And all right, guys, with that final confession, that wraps up some disturbing confession threads. This video is pretty wild. These were some wild confessions. What are your thoughts? Drop your thoughts down below. I read every single comment, so comment down below your thoughts, and maybe I'll reply. And please like the video, subscribe to the channel if you enjoyed the video. And if you enjoyed this video, check out some other videos on the channel. I appreciate it so much. Please follow me on Instagram and follow me on Spotify. It helps out so much. And comment down below if you'd like to see videos like this in the future. And also comment down below if you'd like to see videos longer than this, shorter than this, or this length is perfect. Just let me know. And I appreciate you watching to the end of the video. It means the world. Thank you so much for watching. And this was Snook. And I'll see you next time. Bye. Hey, what's up, guys, and welcome back to the channel. And today we're getting into some horrifying confession threads. And this is a series where I read viewer submitted confessions and also confessions from Reddit. And to be honest, they are all just insane, horrifying, and downright disturbing. And if you'd like to have your confession in a future video, please send to the email on screen now. Thank you, and I just think you'll want to stick around because today's confessions are just beyond wild and shocking. And please like the video and subscribe to the channel. It helps more than you know. And this video will be long enough already, so without further ado, let's get into some horrifying confession threads. I was once involved with a group of people that murdered an old man. I originally posted this in r/true crime, but someone suggested that I repost here. For my own safety, I'll be keeping some of the details of this story a little vague, but it's mostly the truth, with a few guesses where my memory fails me, as this was about 20 or so years ago. Some background. I was homeless on and off between 13 to 16 years old, right around the tail end of the 90s, and had little to no contact with my family. I was a moderately frequent drug user, but at the time of this story, I was mostly into weed and mushrooms, with this story containing my first experience with crystal and tweakers. In short, I was a typical 90s teenage dirtbag with little to no moral compass. I've lived most of my life in major metropolitan areas. However, my wanderings at this time had led me to a somewhat rural town about 2 hours south of Canada, somewhere around the Pacific Northwest. Through adventures in drug use, I had made a few new friends. Let's call them Jeremy, my closest friend in this group, Karen, my girlfriend, and Tony, a fellow teenage dirtbag. We spent our days figuring out ways to get our hands on some weed, for the most part, which included everything from panhandling to burglary. A couple of times a week, we'd go out and see Jeremy's girlfriend, who was under house arrest. While out there, we'd often roam the neighborhoods looking for unlocked cars to rob, shoplift from the local shops, and get drunk on cheap, disgusting wine. Looking at you, Carlo Rosie. One day, after an afternoon of minor crimes and drugs, we met up with someone I hadn't yet encountered, but who was known to my local group. Let's call him Garrett. Garrett was the only one of us over 18, which at the time provided a certain amount of cool factor and helped us spend our ill-gotten funds on a small amount of crystal. We were all crashing at Karen's house while her parents were out of town, and we all got high, this being my first time. After we were all lit, the bag was empty, and Garrett started talking about scoring some more. However, we were all broke. Garrett had a brilliant plan for getting a large chunk of money quickly. It seems Garrett had a childhood friend whose grandfather lived in the area and kept a lot of cash on hand as he didn't trust banks. Garrett's plan was to put on a mask, grab some knives, and scare the old man into giving us his money. The others were very interested as they wanted to get high. However, I was fairly adamantly against it. I won't pretend I had some sort of a moral objection, but strong arm robbery was a bit above everything I'd gotten involved with. And quite frankly, I was scared. Additionally, we hadn't cased the place at all, so we had no information about his neighbors, when people left/returned home, if and when people were likely to visit, etc. Furthermore, the entire plan was concocted in about 15 minutes, so it wasn't exactly an Ocean's 11 setup. Jeremy was going to be the driver, and Garrett and Tony would go in and do the actual robbery. Karen and I were supposed to be the lookouts. However, for all of the above reasons, I refused to have anything to do with it, and told Karen she shouldn't either, which surprisingly, she listened to. I tried to talk to them into waiting until we could get more info about the guy and the neighbors, but Garrett was dead set on doing it ASAP. I've since inferred he was a serious addict and needed something right now, which explains why he was so gung-ho about the whole thing. My concerns were brushed aside, and they started getting ready. 2 t-shirts with sloppily cut eye holes would be the masks, and 2 butcher knives from the block in Karen's kitchen would be the weapons. Jeremy would wait outside with the engine running. They'd go in and scare the guy, get the money, and run back out. A plastic grocery bag was used to collect the cash. So, ridiculously equipped, Jeremy, Tony, and Garrett headed out the door, and Karen and I settled down to wait. This was just about sundown, and we expected the whole thing, for good or ill, would be over fairly quickly. And Karen assured me we'd be doing drugs in no time. We fooled around for a little bit since we were alone, but being thwacked to the moon, I was more interested in talking than having intimacy. And in retrospect, can tell that I was annoying the absolute shit out of her with my verbal diarrhea. 15 minutes turned into 30, and then an hour with no sign of the guys. The sun went completely down, and it was full night. By this point, we were super agitated and kept checking the blinds in classic tweaker form. Anytime we heard anything at all, we turned on some music and were laying on the couch when the door flew open. There in the doorway stood Jeremy, eyes wide and frantic, who burst out, "He killed him! He fucking killed him!" Behind him walked Tony, in a daze, and behind him was Garrett, covered in blood. I don't think I'll quite ever forget the look on Garrett's face. Haunted doesn't do it justice. It was the expression of someone who knows he is damned. He walked slowly into the house and went directly into the bathroom and closed the door. We heard the faucet running as he washed the blood off of his hands and face, and we all stood silent, staring at each other. After I recovered from my initial shock, I asked what the actual fuck had happened. Evidently, things had unfolded pretty much as intended for the first half of the capper. The old man was appropriately terrified and handed over the money after being roughed up a little. Once the bag was filled and they were almost out of the door, the poor bastard said, "It's you, Garrett, isn't it?" Evidently recognizing Garrett's voice as one of his grandson's friends. Well, Garrett panicked and turned around and stabbed him directly in the chest 19 times. After the first 14, his knife hand bent, so he took Tony's knife and stabbed him 5 more times, with his hand over the old man's mouth to try to stop his screaming. Finally, he slowed, stood up, and grabbed the bag of money. They both fled for the door. Unfortunately, one of the old man's neighbors had evidently come home right around this time. I was never able to get the straight of exactly when he arrived, and saw 2 masked men running out of the house. He shouted at them to stop, then proceeded to jump back into his car and follow them. Jeremy drove like a maniac to lose them, and then drove at random while they tried to figure out what the hell to do next. They finally decided to drive back to where we were and ditch the car several blocks away, trusting to the cover of night to hide the blood all over Garrett. As they told the story, Garrett finished washing himself off and opened the bag of money. If I recall correctly, it was something around 5 or 6 grand. They started to split up the money, even offering me some, which I declined. Horrified that things had turned out this way, if I was able to, I would have run screaming from the place. However, now I was party to a murder, and I didn't think they'd be too excited about someone who knew the details running off to who knows where. I refused the offered cash and tried to calm my thwacked out mind down, envisioning cops busting through the door at any moment. The largest amount of money they put into a hollowed out deodorant container, which then they buried in the backyard. Each kept several $100s, and Jeremy agreed to take Tony and Garrett where they wanted to go, and would score some crystal to come back and take with Karen and I. The 3 left, and Karen and I settled back into waiting anxiously. Now, eventually, Jeremy returned with a big sack of crystal, which he proceeded to get blasted on, and spent the entire night playing cards and checking the windows. It was, without question, the scariest fucking night I'd ever had up to that point. We discussed whether or not the neighbor got the license plate number, if the cops would find the car, once again abandoned several blocks away, and even if Garrett would think about killing all of us to cover his tracks. In the morning, we decided to split up. In reality, they were super annoyed by the edgy, thwacked version of me, and I just wanted to get the fuck away from them. I went to the flop house I was staying at, a bizarre little cult-like family setup that probably deserves its own story, and crashed out for a day. When I woke up, I headed to my local panhandling spot to get the money for some potato wedges, 12 for $1. What a deal. And while I was there, I checked a newspaper to see if there was anything there. Sure enough, the murder was front page material. Given the semi-rural nature of the town, chilled to the core, I walked dazedly around town until late that night before returning to my flop house. The patriarch of my little household was a worldly, mostly well-meaning gentleman we'll call Clive. Clive knew me pretty well by this point and was a charismatic individual. He pulled me aside and asked what was wrong late that night, informed me that the cops had come by that day asking about me, and asked if there was anything I'd like to tell him. I spilled everything. Clive listened in silence as I told him what had happened, and at the end of it, shared something with me that none of us had known. As a younger man, he'd spent 7 years in prison for armed robbery. He knew what it was like to be in serious capital T trouble, and asked only one thing of me: don't commit S-word in his house, as there were young kids living there. Again, it was a really, really strange place. I assured him I wouldn't, and we drank coffee and played cards until the sun came up. At about 9 in the morning, the cops showed up again, and this time, I went with them. As it happened, I wasn't the last person to be rounded up. Garrett was still at large. Being a good criminal, I clammed up and said nothing, besides asking them what I was being questioned about. They informed me that I was wanted for question in regards to a murder, and I spent the car ride and waiting room time struggling to control my sphincter. When I was escorted into the interview area, which was just a regular office, not a scary movie interview room, I was asked if there was anything I wanted to tell them. I, of course, said I had no idea why I was there, but I was shaking and sweating, and I knew they could see it. They decided to offer some information. An old man had been murdered, and they had multiple people in custody, all of whom seemed to think that the plan was my idea. I was so stunned by this, I made what was probably a rather comical "wah" face and started shaking a bit more. The interviewer outlined the basic facts that they knew, which were all pretty much on the money except for the fact that I had been pointed out as the mastermind of the operation. They even provided me with a statement from Karen, which indicated the whole plan had been mine, and that they hadn't wanted to do it, but I had threatened them into compliance, which was pretty ludicrous, as I was the youngest person in the group and a scrawny little white boy. He left me with the statement and a cup of coffee while he went to the bathroom. By this point, I was freaking right the fuck out. What the actual fuck? Why had my so-called friends all pointed the finger at me? I slowly began to realize that they had all known each other for much longer than I'd known any of them, and that much of our interactions had involved me bringing weed or cash to share. Was I a sucker? Was this me being used? A chump? And being left out to dry? When the interviewer came back in, he sat down in his desk, looked at me, and just said, "Tell me." I paused, then shakily asked for a soda and a cigarette, and was provided both, which was a bit interesting as I was only 15. I told them that I wasn't prepared to make a statement, but could offer a hypothetical explanation of events, which he said would be acceptable for now. I huddled by the window and, as much as it pains me to admit it, rolled over like a good boy. I told them everything relating to the event itself, the participants, the plan, where it went wrong, and what happened. The interviewer sat in silence and let me ramble it all out while I blew my smoke out the window. He asked why I didn't try harder to stop them or go to the police after the event. And I told him I was, quite simply, afraid of people that had killed a guy. Fortunately for me, they seemed to think my story lined up with what they knew so far, and decided that they didn't have enough evidence to charge me at the time. I was told not to leave town, and that it would be wise for me to retain legal advice. I returned home and spent the night smoking a bunch of weed, then went to sleep, trying not to think about it. That night, Garrett was tracked down and arrested at gunpoint, brought back to the station, and interrogated. He copped to the murder and told them everything that had happened. Much to my everlasting surprise, he backed my claim that I had been against the entire plan from the beginning, refused to take any money, and generally seemed to want nothing to do with the situation. From what I understand, he referred to me as just a kid who was in the wrong place at the wrong time. The next day, I was called back in, sat down, and told about Garrett's confession. This person, who I'd only met that day, confirmed everything that I had told them, and went out of his way to explain that I was not a willing participant. I've always gotten the sense that he was truly remorseful for what he had done and didn't want to see anyone else suffer for it. They told me I was free to go for the moment, but that they might have additional questions for me in the future. Later that day, I saw a story in the local paper indicating that the culprit had been apprehended and naming him. The article also mentioned that 3 minors were in custody and an unnamed male minor was questioned regarding the incident. Me. A couple of weeks later, I caught a Greyhound out of town, leaving the state and returning to my hometown in another state. I later learned that the police did come back around looking for me, but I was long gone. I was still off the grid for another year or two, and I've never been contacted about the incident since then. I've also never returned to that state. I hope you guys enjoyed my rambling story. It's mostly true as far as I can remember it, other than places where I had to fill in a couple of gaps in my memory, and a couple of times that were nudged to blur the trail a bit, in case anyone feels like being a super sleuth and trying to identify when and where this happened. I later became a productive member of society and am a husband and father with a great career that I've worked hard for. I've always wanted to share the story outside my closest circle of friends, and I feel a little better after doing so. I have quite a few wild stories from my youth as a vagabond, and perhaps I'll post some of those later if anyone finds these interesting. Thanks for reading. And now let's get into some of the top comments. Someone says, "What happened to that bloke Garrett?" And the OP replied saying, 25 to life. The others variously did time in juvenile facilities or mental hospitals. And then someone replies saying, "He's still in?" And then someone else replies saying, "This was 20 years ago, so I would say yes." And then the OP responded saying, "Well, he could have been paroled by now. I haven't gone out of my way to follow up, as I generally would prefer to avoid any further interaction with that whole fucked up situation." And then someone else has another comment that says, "That's a pretty shit situation to be in. Being framed for a murder by people you thought were your friends as a teen. I can't imagine how that would have been. Good on you for turning your life around." And then someone responds saying, "That was quite possibly just a police tactic to get him to talk. Most suspects don't talk if they think that everyone else involved isn't talking, like looking out for each other. But if the suspect believes everyone is blaming it on him, then he is likely to break that loyalty and make a statement." And the OP responds saying, "This is certainly a possibility. The confession that was provided to me had enough details that made me think it was authentic. However, I suppose I could have been tricked." And then the commenter responds to the OP saying, "Not sure if the police are allowed to lie to the extent of faking a confession. Although for a case as serious as murder, perhaps they would, especially if they knew you were involved for sure. Also, interrogation techniques have improved a lot in recent years. Police used to run riots saying and doing whatever they wanted to obtain a confession." And then someone replies saying, "Don't be so naive. The police are absolutely allowed to lie to you. That's why you shouldn't talk to them without a lawyer, especially if you were involved. OP got lucky these cops actually wanted to know the truth." And then another commenter asked a question saying, "What happened to your girl?" And the OP responded saying, "This is actually a fun bit. I later found out that she told everyone I was delusional and that we had never been dating. I guess it wasn't really a match made in heaven. She ended up in a mental institution, which was probably a good place for her to be. I am evidently attracted to unstable women, except wifey, who is only somewhat quirky." And now onto a viewer confession. "Hey Snook, I hope you're doing well, pimp. I just wanted to say I appreciate all the hard work you put into making videos. I listen to every upload at work and try to comment if I have the time. Anyways, this story took place when I was in high school, and I've never really told anyone except a really close friend. That's not to say nobody knows about it, but I don't really share it. I recently was contacted by the ex in question, which is what reminded me of this and prompted me to write it. As the title says, I got cheated on and proceeded to destroy her entire family. Now I want to preface this by saying what happened was never my intention, but I suppose if I thought about my actions for even a brief moment, I could have foreseen a lot of what happened. This story begins when I was a sophomore in high school. I had a bit of a glow up and started getting my first bit of female attention. I started sneaking out to hang out with a girl and get up to some nefarious activities. Before this, I was a good kid for the most part. I had good grades, I was playing varsity baseball as a freshman, and I stayed out of trouble. Shortly after meeting this girl, I tore my labrum playing baseball and had to get surgery. While I missed the start of baseball season, I started to hang out with this girl even more. We went from sneaking out maybe once every couple weeks to every single night. I would pay my brother $5 and he would let me take his car out for the night. Well, one night I picked this girl up and she had weed with her. I had smoked a couple times before. However, my dad was not only a deputy at the time, but he was on the narcotics task force for the county. So Despite the fact I live in a very weed-friendly state, I knew I would be screwed if I ever got caught. Even though my parents were divorced, I knew my mom would tell my dad. The risk simply was not worth the reward. Anyways, the regular MO was to pick her up, then drive the 15 minutes back to my house out in the sticks. I had a big house and it was a lot easier to chill at my house, so that cool spring night, I wasn't really thinking with the right head, and the temptation won. We ripped a blank page out of my Bible, we rolled it up, and smoked out in the woods on my property. Man, I knew I liked weed, but that night was one of the biggest mistakes I ever made. You see, I liked this girl, but really, she was just the first attractive girl to ever be interested in me like that. And right as I was figuring that out, I also figured out how much I liked smoking. And well, this girl was someone I could smoke with. And obviously, I liked the naughty time as well. So every day, I would sneak out, pick her up, smoke, and pretend to watch movies until an hour before my parents woke up. Then I would take her home. Every night. I was tired every day, and my shoulder was not getting any better in terms of playing baseball again. I was 4 months post-op and still could not throw a baseball without extreme pain for days. And without my main reason to keep my grades up, I started slacking in school. Then one day at lunch, there was talk about our spring break starting 2 weeks early. If you were inhaling O2 at the time, you know what this was. The lockdown started. I was so depressed for all the reasons everyone else was. Plus, my nightmare of a labrum slap tear that would not heal properly. I started smoking by myself all day. It was at this time I also started stealing liquor from my parents. I stopped logging into my Zooms and spiraled bad. To say the least, I was self-destructing. To make it worse, my brother left for boot camp that summer, meaning I had no more responsible oversight in that house. My parents had been split since I was a little kid, and I rarely made the 90-minute drive to my dad's house. I was still hanging out with this girl every day. One fall evening, she blocked me from leaving her house. She had this sad look on her face when she asked me, "Are you ever going to actually ask me to be your girlfriend?" At that moment, I realized again how much I didn't really like this girl. But instead of being mature and smart, I folded like a lawn chair. I asked her to be my girlfriend. She was hot. I was whipped. I liked having someone to smoke with 24/7, but all it was doing was feeding into my depression, which I would then suppress with ganja and liquor. See the spiral? And it certainly did not help that I liked it so much. Any sort of messed up I could be, I would get, and I loved it. Which is why, when my now girlfriend pulled out 2 tabs of acid one night while we were watching the sunset at a parking garage, it didn't take much convincing. That was the beginning of my psychedelic addiction. It started with once every month or so, then every 2 weeks as soon as my tolerance was gone, then every week, doubling the dose each time. What I did not know at the time was that I am genetically prone to bipolar disorder, depression, and some other mental disorders. Within 14 months, I'd gone from a straight A varsity baseball player to a bipolar, drug-addicted dropout. My mom noticed. It would have been impossible not to. I started going to therapy and to get mental health evals, got diagnosed with bipolar disorder and depression, then started the medications. That was the worst 5 months of my life. The side effects were worse than the problems themselves. It's just guesswork. Torturous guesswork. My mental health took major tolls on my relationship. I noticed things. One night she called me and asked if a guy could come over to smoke. I knew she would cheat. I knew she had already had with him. But I was weak. I'd let it happen. Start an argument, have no proof, and just feel like shit. I doubled down on all of it. The drinking, smoking, psychedelics, and intimacy. It was such a toxic situation, and I was so blind to it all. I was 16, working 4 p.m. to 1 a.m. as a dishwasher, selling drugs in the day to pay for my own increasingly more expensive addictions. To put it into perspective for all these smokers out there, I was smoking 4 to 6 G's. I can't say the actual word or the dosing because of guideline reasons, but you get it. This continued until it all came to a head on my 17th birthday, We dropped my sister off at a friend's house and started to have an argument. That's when she told me she cheated on me with 3 different guys. And I'm unsure if the emailer who sent this email meant sister or girlfriend. I dropped my sister off at a friend's house and she admitted she cheated on me. I assume it's girlfriend, but let's continue. He says she used it as a weapon to belittle me, trash me as a person, and hurt me so deep. I went numb. And yeah, I think this is a girlfriend. I drove to his Taco Bell, tears rolling down my face, and parked. I told her to go inside and get some food and cool off. As soon as she got out, I left her there. I went to my trusty Diamond Shamrock that didn't ID and got a case of beer. I woke up in my car on the side of a random county road in the sticks. I drove home and started plotting. I wanted to hurt her how she hurt me. Worse, I always will take it one step further. I decided I would send her dad a text, telling him every secret I knew about her. I was always really close with her dad, and he really liked me. I also knew he would rain hellfire down on her if he knew even a tiny bit of the shit she got up to. So I started my message by telling him his daughter cheated. I told him exactly where to look on her phone for incriminating messages of drug use, stealing his truck, etc. I then told him where to find her weed stash. I told him about how his wife just gave her another phone when he took hers. I told him about how his wife would let us smoke while she was there. I told him about how they all talk shit about him. I told him everything. I sent the message, and the next morning, he replied with a thumbs up. That's the most dad thing to do. I didn't think about it again. I knew if anything happened, I wouldn't find out until much later through mutual friends because I didn't go to school anymore at that point. Well, I wouldn't be writing this unless something happened. About 3 months later, one of my ex's friends added me on Snapchat. She just wanted to bump uglies, if you're smelling what I'm stepping in. Well, that night, she ended up telling me what happened in that household. Her dad got my message and went nuclear. Found out everything I said was true, and to say the least, he was pissed. He found her stash, the second phone, the messages, the pictures, all of it. He had a conversation with his wife that ended with him wanting divorce. He smashed all their phones and left, transferred all their money to an account only he has access to, and ghosted them. He moved out of state that same week with no money. They had to figure out how to survive. Her older sister moved in with her boyfriend. My ex moved in with a friend, and the mom did the same. Her dad owned a very successful business, and the mom didn't work or anything. Their home was only in her dad's name. He put it on the market within 2 weeks, and it sold 2 weeks after that. Their older brother, who had been out of the house, sided with the dad, and that started another problem. When my ex wouldn't completely cut her brother off, her mom cut her off. Within a month, she was disowned by both her parents. Holy shit, that escalated quick. Let's continue. That night, me and her friend ended up doing the deed, and in my post-nut clarity, I began to reflect on the situation. Had I really caused them to get a divorce? Was it my place to tell him any of that information? It started to eat away at me. But in my drug-saturated brain, it didn't take me long to forget about it and move on without a care. About a year later, I saw a mutual friend at a local festival. I went to say what's up to her, and she just looked disgusted with me. I asked her why she was being so, for a lack of better words, bitchy. Then she blew up on me, saying, "Really, you piece of shit? I'm bitchy? You got ex's name's mom killed." Whoa. I interrupted her. What the fuck are you talking about? I got her mom killed? Are you brain dead? After a brief back and forth, she agreed to tell me what happened with her mom. Apparently, her mom started drinking. A lot. About a month later, I got my last update on my ex. Her sister went to stop by her mom's apartment. She opened the door and found her mom motionless on the couch. Her sister was a nursing major and immediately knew her mom was dead. She had drank herself to death. I could not believe what she told me. When I got home, I found her obituary online. There I was, at my desk, looking at the obituary for a woman who I saw every day for months. A woman
who had fed me countless times, who allowed me to stay in her home and date her daughter. Dead at 46. Because of me. Was it because of me? Back and forth. I'd rationalize both sides of my mind. I mean, she chose to go behind his back. She chose to let teenagers smoke weed at her house. But I chose to blow the whistle. Who knows what would have happened if I didn't? But now we all know what happened after I did. And it was fucking with my head. So did the only thing I had learned to do in distress lean harder into my substance abuse and self-destruction? My addiction spiraled again, and my mental health reached an all-time low. I deleted all socials, all contacts, packed my clothes, and just left. I spent the next 3 years traveling across the US battling a severe substance dependency. I'm now 22, living close to family again, and have overcame my dependency. My mental health is in a much better state now, and I stay far away from hard alcohol and hard drugs. I still smoke after work, maybe a beer or two, but nowhere near how I used to. As I mentioned at the beginning of the story, I was only reminded of this because my ex recently got into contact with me. I did not respond. I don't know what else to say. How to go about a conversation with someone whose life I ruined. I see the text notification every day, and I just look at it, and my heart sinks. I don't want to respond, but maybe I owe it to her? I don't know. She also seems to be doing well from what I see online, so I don't want to damage any healing either of us had from that awful situation. I know I'm exponentially more mature now than I was back then, but I just don't want to open that door again. To end, I want to clear a few things up. I do not want to come across as portraying myself as a victim. I'm well aware that I made a stupid decision when I was younger that ruined the lives of many people. I'm not proud of it by any standard. I'm not saying my ex or anyone else but me is responsible for where my life ended up. We are both immature with little to no positive guidance. I think we all made our mistakes that led up to this. Every mistake and piss poor decision was essential to where this all ended up. To dwell on bad choices too much is not good. To dwell on it, analyze, learn, grow, and move on, that is where healing is found. If anyone reading/listening to this and is being/has been cheated on, walk away with your head up. It hurts. It's not easy, but it's a mature thing to do. They have chosen someone else. Go. Don't try to get back at them. Don't try to fix things. Drugs are bad, period. If you haven't done them, don't. Worst case, you'll like it, and forever will struggle with the knowledge that a little puff or sniff can make any situation that much more fun and enjoyable. If you are currently struggling with substance abuse, recognize your problem first. Then recognize how powerless you have become against it for so long. Reach out for help. Hotlines, friends, family, churches, wherever you can find it, get it. Your brain is your own enemy right now. Make a resolve like no other that you want sobriety over anything else. That goes for anyone, from a fent addict to a kid in high school addicted to overpriced carts. The punishment, heartaches, and trials you go through now will save you and everyone around you from years and years of suffering. To all my people battling mental demons, I love you. It can and will get better, not just for a time. There is hope. Reach out for help. I promise you there is someone, somewhere who cares enough for you to give you the assistance you need. But they cannot make these steps for you. Be strong. You're only given as much suffering as you can take. Know that there is purpose in your pain, but have peace in the knowledge that you may never ever fully know the reason you are enduring the sufferings you are. Thanks for reading my confession. Think what you want, but I love you all. Stay safe and keep on snooking it. Hello, Snook.
I've recently came across your page in my hunt for answers to my dilemma. I'm not sure where to start with this, but here it goes. I'm currently 29, turning 30 in June and from the UK. My life just now is going well. I own a house, which many would not be able to obtain at this age, alongside a good-looking partner. An M5 I own outright, rare here, and a high-position job at a British weapons manufacturer / defense contractor. I am in no way ostentatious, but I know that I am very much better off compared to my peers. I believe the reason for this is that I am a diagnosed psychopath. I currently take antipsychotics to relieve the urges of my youth, which I lie to my spouse about being epilepsy medication to cover up when she picks up prescriptions for me. I've done things that people would consider horrific to people because of these urges. So much so, I was convicted of grievous bodily harm, or GBH, and SA at the age of 10. I want to clarify that it wasn't for a desire, but for power over the person. I also got away with many things due to them being difficult to prove, or that I knew to cover my tracks, so to speak. I was deemed unfit for trial by a psychiatrist and was sent to a mental institution, where I spent 9 months before being released with a lifetime requirement for medication. After release, I understood that although this is how I feel, I need to act like a chameleon and create a life for myself, one in which I could probably get away with things in the future. Thankfully, we moved town just in time for the start of secondary school, so it was a lot easier to confine previous me to the history books. I've always been one of the smartest or the smartest in the room wherever I go. I got the best grades out of my many classes and got a 1-1 master's degree in business development from one of the most prestigious universities in Scotland. Again, this is not a brag, and I don't usually discuss this type of thing. I'm just being blunt with facts as I feel I have to. I've kept the same friends since high school who do not know anything about my previous behavior or my current fantasies. I keep them around so I can control them, and they look up to the persona I've fabricated. I must say I have never loved someone in the way others talk about it. I keep people as extensions of myself or as someone I can depend on. The only person I have an affection to is my mom, and I believe that is through a slight uneasy feeling I have caused she's the remaining person who remembers the real me who's still around me. I met my current girlfriend 8 years ago through university. She is visually stunning, and I found to be easily manipulated into doing what I want, and her opinions could be molded. I feel having a good-looking woman around my waist made me look good to others. However, I found that the better looking they are, the harder they are to manipulate, so she is perfect for me. Recently, she started working with one of the boys that was in my primary school class, who I know has told her about the things I've done. Her demeanor continues to worsen towards me as the months go by, and I can now genuinely feel her fear. I thought of what I could do with him, but it'd be too suspicious at this point. If the full extent of the things I did came to light to my girlfriend, my friends, my work, my professional network will end. Everything I have built will crumble to nothing. I know my friends and family won't be able to look at me. I have the second highest security clearance level available, and I could see that revoked if my childhood record was exposed. I will lose everything I've earned. My house, car, the lot if it can be proven. I think the part that really angers me is that I slipped up. Either through complacency or arrogance, I feel I have let him get the better of me by allowing him to say what I've done with no rebuttal or repercussions until now. So to conclude, I'm asking what you think is the best approach. I know she will ask soon, and my primary tactic, I believe, is damage control. If I admit to the bullying, I can deny the more severe actions and chalk it up to him wanting revenge or jealousy. Worst case, I may lose her and the house, but I will keep my minions and my job. I said we would never marry, so she can only be entitled to half the house and not my car, pension, or private possessions at least. Regards, Scott. And all right, Scott, there is a lot to unpack here. A lot to unpack here. I just think it's very odd the way you refer to many things, such as your girlfriend, as more of an object than a person, or your girlfriend. You say, worst case, I may lose her and the house, but I will keep my minions. Minions, I can only assume to be kind of your coworkers or the people that you kind of manage. I think that's another very odd thing to say. I just think you mention things in such an odd way, in such a self-centered way and narcissistic way, in all honesty. I mean, it's all me, me, me. This is going to happen to me. I did this, but I'm trying to figure out damage control. If I were you, or my advice to you, I don't think you should continue lying to everybody. I mean, you're already seeing it. It's going to slip through the cracks eventually. I think you should just actually be honest. I think you should be honest with your girlfriend and say, this is what I did when I was younger. I'm sorry, and that's who I am. And stop lying to her. Stop lying to your girlfriend. Stop lying to your job, and stop lying to everybody in your life. It will only continue to get worse if you keep lying and building your entire life on a lie. I've read more than enough stories on people who have built their entire lives, and they've gotten away with it for decades, but they've built their entire life for decades on lies. And guess what? It all comes crumbling down eventually. And that is the truth. If you're not honest and straightforward, then it's going to bite you in the ass all the time. And I mean, you're just so worried about yourself all the time. And you're kind of like, in the beginning, you even said it wasn't a brag, but that's a very odd thing to mention. You're like, I'm the smartest person in the room. I'm always the smartest. I know this thing. I know how to manipulate my girlfriend. I know how to do this and do that. I just find it very, very weird and honestly, just super self-centered and narcissistic. You did admit to being on antipsychotics, which I think is good. Although I think if you are up to it, I mean, kind of knowing this personality type, you probably won't be up to it, but getting therapy and getting help, because I think you need to kind of break down all these barriers you've built around yourself. I mean, you've built up so many mental barriers, like you can't trust anybody. You don't love your girlfriend. You don't like this or that. I think you seem to really like your house and car because you're so worried about losing the material possessions, but you don't care about the true connections with your people around you or your coworkers, and you mentioned them as minions. And yeah, I mean, to be honest, you asked me what your best approach is, and I think your best approach is being honest. Don't try to damage control. And you even said I can deny the more severe actions and chalk it up to him wanting revenge or jealousy. So you're just building it up even more. Like, then you're just going to cause more issues and more, like, you have a record on yourself because you went to juvenile detention and you got in trouble. He's going to be able to get that eventually, or somebody will. And see, like, you're just like, this just won't work out if you keep lying and keep building your life upon lies upon lies. Tell your girlfriend the truth. Say you fucked up when you were younger. I mean, that was years and years and years ago. That's not you now. And you can move on and become a better person. But if you keep kind of going back to the same tactics of lying and deception and manipulation, then you're never going to become a better person and then get out of that kind of that vicious cycle of people finding out the lies you've told them, if that makes sense. And so I think your best approach is to be completely honest with your girlfriend, because she's going to find out eventually. And I mean, the genie is out of the bottle, so to speak. She knows that you did something when you were younger, and now she is going to do as much research as she possibly can about it. She's going to ask family. She's going to ask friends. She might ask your mom. She might ask, a friend of the friend who's quote unquote snitching on you. And so the genie is out of the bottle. And I think it is best case scenario to be completely honest and maybe take this as a learning lesson and kind of a pivotal point to be honest here on out and try to view people as people and not minions or your kind of property almost. I mean, you said, my girlfriend is perfect because she's at my waist all the time and she follows me around and she's a pretty face. I really think you need to work on a lot of facets of your life because, yeah, this confession just was all over the place and filled with things that need to be talked about. But to keep this short, as short as it can, just try to be honest and try to be a better person, because what you're doing now will not work out. My whole family thinks I've been sober for the past year. I'm 19 female, and about a year ago, I spiraled into a really horrible state of addiction. It started with drinking. I moved out for the first time and had a lot of free time. I started drinking more because I was bored. The house started to creep me out, keeping me up at night, so I started drinking to fall asleep. It spiraled over the course of 2 months-ish to me drinking all hours of the day, taking shots in the bathroom at work as soon as I woke up, as soon as I did anything really. I felt more drunk when I stopped drinking, and it got really bad really fast. I realized I couldn't not drink, and at one point when I ran out of alcohol, I started to hallucinate. So instead of addressing the problem, I just kept on drinking. My roommate stopped coming home because she said she was, quote, tired of watching me do that to myself. I didn't realize it at the time, but I legitimately looked like I was dying. And I was dying. I don't remember anything leading up to it, but I fell into a drug binge. I stayed up doing booger sugar with friends for days on end. And when I ran out, I'd pop a pill to help me sleep it off. I slept for 2 days at one point, according to my roommate. One night, after falling asleep after a booger sugar binge, no pills involved, I had 2 back-to-back seizures. Thank God my friend happened to be in the room. It was a terrifying experience. The most terrifying and traumatic experience of my life. And I have such horrible PTSD from it, but I never talk about it to anyone. After I got back from the hospital, I ruled out booger sugar. I don't remember how the next part started. I just remember waking up and a week had gone by and I've been doing pills and other pills for the entire time. I don't remember a thing and it's terrifying. I know that the guy who was giving them to me had laced me with fent, which led to me ODing and back in the hospital. And I've been told that he also R-worded me. I could go into a lot more detail, but I ended up in rehab for a while, followed by intensive outpatient treatment. I'm 19 now, and everyone thinks I've been sober since. I mean, to be fair, I really have got my shit together. I started my first year of college straight out of rehab and finished with good grades. I've made good friends, found a healthy relationship, moved into a new apartment, started teaching art classes, and have genuinely been relatively happy. But I'm not sober. I was actually only sober for 3 weeks. All I can say is that I feel I have control now, but I'm sure I said the same thing then. And now let's get into some of the top comments. Someone says, I work in a treatment center. You're very young. It's rare for a very young person to get sober and clean. What's not rare is for their addiction to spiral. Things get worse and worse over time. You lose jobs, relationships, homes, and school. You have to learn to give up more and more for your addiction to get by until you've had enough. And then once things are too painful to continue, you have to learn how to quit. If you don't, you end up dead or in jail or on the street. But it's never good. You don't have to go through that. You might not be an addict yet, but you're definitely on the way. If you continue, things will get worse. You will hurt the people you love the most, and you will hurt yourself. Stop now. Give yourself a better future. And then someone replies to that saying, you're absolutely right, but she is absolutely an addict. There's no getting around that. I'm a functional addict. I could hold every job I had. Only use drugs where I still had control of everything I did. I hated not being in control, but thought I could handle it. I couldn't. Unfortunately, she still hasn't hit rock bottom and will, and hopefully learn that she can't control it. And then someone had one haunting comment saying, please seek help. You sound like my best friend. She OD'd in February. In 1999, I killed a man and his wife with a baseball bat for abusing me as a child in the early 90s. I got 20 years in a mental institution. I was born in 1983. We moved into this neighborhood in 1989. There was this guy who had a family, a wife and 2 children. That seemed pretty nice. However, we never really got to do anything with them. However, he would offer me soda and other drinks if I would go into his shed and look at our cars. The first time he SA'd me was in 1993. I was 10. He showed me his cars, then pushed me down, and then did some stuff to me. At first, I didn't know what was happening and didn't think much of it until I realized he was R-wording me. He then hit me and said if I told his wife or anybody about it, he would kill me. He even pulled a gun in my face once. It was disgusting. I couldn't sleep at night. I was scared to tell anyone. I didn't want to be known as a person who was abused by a neighbor. And it went on for almost 2 years. When I was turning 15, 1998, the full realization of what had happened hit me. I was R-worded as a child. I became depressed and started planning revenge. I had played baseball before, so we had some bats in the shed. I plotted to get revenge on him for ruining my life and relationships. It was January 25th, 1999. It was after 5 p.m., and I grabbed a camcorder and went out to the shed and grabbed a baseball bat. I told my mom I was going to shovel his driveway. There was a snowstorm, but I wasn't. I knocked on his door, and his wife opened. I swung the bat at her, and she collapsed. Then I heard screaming from his kids. I had the camcorder in one hand and the bat in my other hand. I recorded the whole thing. He began to run. He was sitting on the couch watching TV. I chased him into the bathroom, where I destroyed the door while screaming at him. When I broke it down, he was in the bathtub screaming. As I swung the bat at him for 2 whole minutes, every time I hit him, his face got worse. I just swung and never cared. I let him die while I ran into the room. I put my camcorder down as I broke the door, and his kids were near his wife, who was knocked out. I told them to go into their rooms and to leave me alone. They were crying. I swung the bat at his wife a few times until she was dead. Then I called 911 and said I'd killed them. I killed both of them. They were dead. The prosecutor understood what had happened, and it was relieved that he had been beating his wife and even his children sometimes. So they sent me to a mental institution, but they didn't charge me with murder. They said I had been affected by the abuse and that the killing of him was justified, but the wife was not. I was sent to the institution for 20 years, and now I'm out. I have no intention of committing any more crimes. I tried to miscarry my baby and hurt her permanently. When I was 15, I got myself pregnant unintentionally. I was a very promiscuous teenager, and I wasn't exactly safe about it. Sometimes I used protection, sometimes I didn't. I got really worried when I started experiencing the usual symptoms of morning headaches and nausea and skipped my period. So I took a pregnancy test, and what I feared was true. I was pregnant. I had no idea how to react to this. For one, I was utterly terrified, and I wanted to get rid of it. In a way, it felt parasitic. The thing inside me with the power to fuck my life up. I have very Christian parents who would have disowned me for having a procedure to get rid of the baby, but I knew they would actually love to raise this kid. However, I hated the idea. I had problems with eating at the time and didn't want to gain the pregnancy weight, and I just didn't want a child. I guess I'm making excuses even now. I started a smoking habit very promptly, since I'd heard in science lessons that one of the effects of smoking can be a miscarriage. I barely ate at all, and if I did, I threw it up, all in the hopes of starving it, as if I was trying to get rid of a fever. It didn't work. I gave birth to her far too early, and as a result, she is blind. I gave her away and haven't heard from her since. She's 8 by now. My parents were surprisingly supportive, and I got the help I needed for my eating disorder, and I still go to regular therapy. I just had to get it off my chest. Edit. I've realized now that this confession has come off as unremorseful. It was hard writing it, and as a result, I focused more on what happened than my emotions. I want to make it clear that I really, really regret my actions. It's very hard to live with what I've done. And when I was 17, I attempted S-word because I simply couldn't handle it any longer. What I've done to my child tears me apart every day. I still have nightmares.
I still can't sleep at night. I can't tell you how many times I've wished and prayed to go back in time. However, I've focused on improving myself through therapy, and I'm training to be a nurse to help children. I know that doesn't make up for it, but I'm trying hard to be better. I held on too long, and all it did was hurt my daughter. My daughter had multiple congenital birth defects that led to a lifetime of complications. With medically complex kids, you fix one problem and create two more. She lived 11 years. It was probably 9 years too long. She lived most of her life in hospitals, literally months at a time. She would sometimes be home a week or two and then end up back in it. I don't think she ever spent more than 2 consecutive months out of the hospital in her entire life, until she went on palliative care. She was more comfortable in the hospital than anywhere else. How sad is that? She was the warrior kid. That was her whole identity. Making cards for her nurses and decorating her medical equipment and being tough with a capital T. That was all she had. Never went to school, not in any meaningful capacity. Never played a sport or an instrument. Never had any real friends to speak of. Never had the health to take up any real hobbies. Just an entire life made up of surgeries, shots, and nurses, and fucking medical equipment to decorate. I gave her a pathetic life. There wasn't a single intervention I wasn't willing to put her through to buy more time. She was the happiest, most accepting kid I've ever met, but in the last 6 months she was done. I refused to listen. She asked me over and over again if she could just stop. I'd push until she shut up and went along with what I wanted. Why did I do that? She wanted to make me happy, but she knew she was done. Selfish. She died incredibly agitated and upset. I think she was scared to let go because she knew what it was going to do to me. I wasn't strong enough to let go. I'm so sorry. One of the top comments reads, "What you and her both went through is horrific, and I cannot imagine the guilt that must gnaw at you. Her pain is gone now, and she suffers no more. Her life was one of suffering, and that became your burden as well. There is something here for you to learn, something profound and healing. I urge you to work on forgiving yourself for the most normal animal instinct in the world, keeping our children alive. You did your best and never gave up hope. She touched lives, and the earth was better off for her being here, even if her life wasn't traditional or very long. She loved you, and you loved her. That is a miracle, and that is enough. Please work on forgiving yourself and continuing to love others." And the OP responds to this and says, "Thank you. This is what I needed to hear right now. My life was certainly better for having known her. She really was a great kid." Everyone says that, but she really was. I ended my ex-best friend's career, ruining her life. Title, basically. This was a few years ago. I used to be friends with this girl in college. We'll call her Jackie. And we're both pursuing our nursing degrees. We got along really well for a majority of the school year, except towards the end. I began liking a boy who she knew about, and then had intimate time with him anyways. We both talked about it, and she understood how hurt I was and promised never to do something like that again. Fast forward to nearing our graduation, like a year later. Another boy I had been seeing for a while who came to our place for a pre-party. We all left at the same time. Jackie and I shared an apartment and then went to the party. Jackie left and so did the boy. I figured they were both going to campus together since we had apartments next to each other, and so I just stayed with the rest of my group. I came back only to hear them having intimate time. I was devastated. He was my boyfriend, and I finally thought I found the one. It was a few short months, yes, but still. He was so sweet, and I thought he cared about me. I knew I needed to get back at her for hurting me, and here is how I did.
We both smoke weed, heavily. After graduation, I still was pretending to like her. We both moved back home, which ironically was close to each other, and began working at the same hospital as nurses, different units. Our hospital had a strict drug policy which forbid any drug use. I stopped smoking, but she didn't. I would always convince her to, and I'd just have a drink or pretend to take a hit from it. Sometimes I'd even fake roll one and just smoke a cigarette while she smoked weed. After about 2 months of me stopping weed and her continuing, I left an anonymous note on my manager's desk saying, "Jackie is high now. You need to test her." She would never go to work high, just smoke a day before her shift. She was never ever inebriated while working. Well, about 1 hour later, Occupation Health came and everyone, doctors, techs, unit clerk, cleaning staff, etc., was tested on the unit to prevent any discrimination. And if you left, you'd be breaking policy and risk termination. Jackie immediately texted me after freaking out in the break room that she needed to talk. I ran up and faked to have no idea and was comforting her, saying it'd be fine and nothing to worry about. 1 week later, terminated. She violated the drug policy, which results in immediate termination. She was blacklisted at the hospital and all nearby ones as well. Because of the state I was in too, New York at the time, it was a controlled substance, which made it especially bad. We worked at that hospital for only a few months. Now, she has only been able to work in a local office as a nurse/receptionist, making about a quarter of what she could have been. No other job will hire her. Maybe one a few states away would, but I'm not sure. Do I regret this? Yes. I was an asshole and fucked up. Bad. Will I ever tell her? Probably not. But is karma a bitch? Certainly. Viewer submitted confession. I tried to kill my stepdad when I was 10. I am a longtime lurker of your channel. I don't really comment or contribute, but I really like your content. But that isn't the point of this confession. The short of it is that I, 20 male, tried to kill my stepdad when I was 10. I'm not going to say he deserved it. Nobody deserves a real attempt on their life, but I have carried this on me for a decade. I was living with my mom, little brother, and stepdad. My mother never had a good taste in men, and at the time, she was on drugs despite her schizophrenia and was likely suffering religious psychosis. My stepdad favored me. He found me precocious, and even my mom said he liked me more than he liked her, which, in hindsight, fucking creepy. I didn't like him very much, though. Never liked any of my mom's boyfriends much. It was my stepdad's birthday, and since he grew up in Guatemala in poverty, he never had it celebrated. We spent all afternoon decorating the house, making his favorite dinner, then waiting for him to get back home from work. When my mom called him, another woman answered and then put him on the phone. My mother went ballistic, and they started yelling at each other over the phone in some dialect of Spanish. We waited up for him. He came home very late and very drunk. They started arguing in Spanish, and it wasn't long before it got physical, trapping my brother and I in the corner of the room as they smashed belongings, screamed, and fought. I managed to get my brother and I away, put him in our room, and told him very sternly to put in my earbuds, and no matter what he hears, unless it's me, stay in the room and keep the door locked. I left him there with YouTube and went back out to de-escalate. My attempts to do so didn't work. The fighting got worse, and I started to sob and shake and struggle to breathe, which I now know was probably an anxiety attack. I don't really know what happened, but I felt like my body was on autopilot. I walked past the argument, got a cup, went into my room, and grabbed my bottle of NyQuil. I've always suffered from trauma-related insomnia, and my mom had made me a dose with the NyQuil to sleep at night. I had learned to drink diet soda with the NyQuil because it made it taste better. Something about the way the aspartame reacts with the ingredients in the NyQuil, but with this knowledge, I attempted what I've admitted to. I poured like 5 times the recommended dose into the cup, went into the kitchen, dropped ice into it, and filled up the rest with the diet soda. Then I handed it to him with a dopey, innocent smile. I don't know what I was really thinking. He was already pretty drunk, and I remember telling myself that if he was gone, then he wouldn't hit my mom and that they wouldn't argue. I thought if I offed him, my mom, my little brother, and I could go to Virginia to be with our family and that we would be happy. After a bit, the fighting stopped, and my mom and I were cleaning the aftermath of the fight while my little brother sat on the couch. The living room was littered with broken glass, smashed DVDs, knocked over furniture, etc. My stepdad was in the kitchen, mumbling incoherently at the ceiling. My little brother saw him and asked, "Mama, what's wrong with him?" She looked at him, looked back at the bits of broken bullshit and said, "I really don't know and really don't care." I looked up and saw the cup next to him and asked my little brother, "Hey, can you check that cup by him?" He got up and looked in the cup, responding, "It's almost all empty." And I smiled. He held the cup to his nose and said, "Smells like medicine." My mom looked at me with a horrified expression and asked, "Oh my God, what the fuck did he do?" I just looked at her and said, "What I had to." She checked on him. He was out of it. She took his wallet and drove my brother and I to the gas station to get us slushies and get her cigarettes. He woke up sick as hell the next day, but ended up being fine. My brother demanded we go to Virginia, or he would call our family to do it the hard way. She took us, and we never saw him again. That is, until now, where he found me on socials. He drops likes on my stuff here and there, but we've never talked since my mom left him. Now I'm 20, living in Virginia with my partner, and nobody knows aside from my brother, my mom, and me. I admittedly have a temper like everyone in my family, and I come from a violent family, but I've grown into a pacifist. Not because of moral high grounds or anything deep, but because whenever I'm angry, I do a lot of damage. I still think of that time some nights when I can't sleep and it eats at me. I could have succeeded. He could have died, and then I'd be some true crime documentary rather than a high school graduate with a partner and a promising future. I feel like I don't deserve these good things, though. I know what horrible things I could do, and I fear that someday I'll snap wrong and hurt somebody who matters. I'm in therapy now and have been diagnosed with PTSD, GAD, and depression. I haven't told this to my therapist because I don't know what she'd be legally obligated to do. I hope you use this or even just read it. Sincerely, a late night lurker. My mom caught my dad with a 16-year-old and covered it up. Well, 16 years ago, we had two of my friends and their mother living with us while they went through a divorce. I was 15 and my friends were 14 and 16. I was away at another friend's house one night. When I came back the following day, my mom told me she had kicked them out because the 16-year-old tried to make a move on my dad. She absolutely slandered that poor girl's name. When I got into my 20s, it still sat in the back of my mind. I just knew I didn't get the full truth. So I reached out to the 16-year-old who was also now in her 20s. We met up and I got the true story. I could see the pain in her eyes. She said she'd been in therapy for years because of my father, that he did it in such a loving way. It really fucked her up. She told me they'd been drinking on the property, then went skinny dipping, all while my mother was in bed pregnant with my sister. They made their way into the house and upstairs, where eventually my mother walked in on them. I let her know I had her back and if she ever decided to do anything about it. I'm now in my 30s and recently became a mother, and it's all I've been able to think about. They still don't know that I know the truth. It's reawakened the rage in me, especially all of the teenage rage they made me shove down for so long. Because if anyone did that to my daughter, or if I caught my husband in that situation, hell no. It was easy to shove down before because I learned from the best, my parents. But becoming a mother, especially to a daughter, I've never wanted someone to pay for something they've done so bad. I feel like if I brought it up to my mom, she would just get angry and talk shit.
She'd probably say the past is the past and I need to let it go. That people can change, but I know he hasn't changed due to events over the last few years with his anger and control issues. He's a very big narcissist who believes he can do no wrong whatsoever. And my mother is so far up his ass, it makes me wonder if the 16-year-old was his only victim. If she was, and if he's never done it again, would that be okay? Is this forgivable? Because I don't feel like it is. I want to tell the whole family, but I feel like they just downplay it and make me feel crazy. Cut me off and turn my siblings against me. They've done it before when I called them out on the other thing, so here I am. Just needing to get it out, I guess. What would you do? Someone in the comments says, your dad is a predator and your mom is in denial. I wouldn't want family in my life that couldn't agree that your father is an abuser, amongst other things. I think for your own sake, you should speak up and call out shitty behavior. I recently cut off both my sisters because they were so abusive and it was unhealthy for me. Sometimes we can't have family in our lives, and that is okay. Someone else says, personally, I think that because your father was so brazen as to do this with your mother pregnant and in the house, it suggests he definitely has done this before, or would do it again, or both. He was supposed to be an adult sheltering vulnerable women / girls, but he got a minor drunk and abused them. I agree with the comment that says if this person had brushed it off or was on with it, then things would be different, but that's not the case. I'm not sure what your next steps should be regarding informing people, but I sure as shit wouldn't let my daughter be alone with him. Someone else says the fact that he was so brazen to do this with his wife in the house, he's definitely done it before or since. I'm sorry, these were the parents that you were given. I'd never feel safe leaving my kid alone with either of them. And the OP responds saying, exactly. I'm scared he has done it before or since. I feel horrible because I realize I despise my schizophrenic 19-year-old stepson. But there comes a point where you have to stop clinging to the memory and accept the monstrous reality of what they are now. We've worked so hard to try and ensure my stepson had a good chance at a normal life. Life was bliss until he entered middle school. When he was skipping school daily to smoke cannabis or dabble in psychedelics, resulting in schizoaffective symptoms at age 13. I was the one that removed him from 2 schools and finally homeschooled him to stop him from making his schizophrenic symptoms worse by toking with his friends off school property every chance they got. Cannabis normally never hurts, except those who have a strong predisposition for schizophrenia onset. He was stabilizing eventually, and we were able to bring him up to visit his biological mother for that summer. Later that summer, his bio mom showed 2 weeks early and dumped him on the front step, her trying to escape having to talk with us because he was fully delusional and hallucinating. She and her boyfriend had been supplying him with cannabis and pills, despite knowing his clinical diagnosis. For at least 9 weeks, he was smoking joints or chewing pills and allowed to refuse his antipsychotic meds. The damage was done and permanent. From there on, it was just an incredible challenge just getting him to take his antipsychotic meds to prevent him from flying into incredibly violent rages due to delusions or confabulations. He became so diminished in cognitive ability and very violent and confrontational, he never finished a grade in high school. I exhausted so much effort to get him special classes, special ed teachers that were trained for kids with his disorder, back and forth schedules, so many doctors, and just when a plan would start to play out, he would completely ruin all of our hard work by throwing a desk at his teacher in class, picking daily fights with kids, refusing to write anything, violently attempting to assault doctors or clinic personnel, attempting to assault me or his father every couple of months, forcing us to have him admitted into a long-term mental health facility. We became that family that had a police car out front hauling our son away every few months. We lived in a very nice neighborhood, and it was incredibly embarrassing and sad to be viewed with sympathy or awkward curiosity by neighbors. When he went to visit his mother again, he put her in the hospital by fracturing her face because she refused to give him a cigarette. This happened 6 weeks before his 18th birthday, so no actual charges or helpful consequences. Not even a record. In order to keep him off the streets, we first tried housing him in studios or small apartments, which he was promptly evicted to, aggressively harassing other tenants for cigarettes or money, regardless of how much money we left him. The same happened with hotels, but that is not the worst of it. It is how he treats his father. He tells his dad that dad must take care of him, and dad has no choice. He tells his father that he has to buy him whatever he wants because of his delusion that whatever property we own is really his. We are there to serve him. When he does not get what he wants, he starts massively violent fights, which forces his father to retreat and leave. I demanded we stop providing shelter and food support for a short period due to his behavior. And when our son was tired of being homeless and hungry for a few days, he would beg for help, acting good only until he got what he wanted. The cycle would repeat over and over. Social services, mental health court, applying for adult guardianship, SSI applications. What a fucking sick joke. If you all do not want the monster I'm describing walking freely on these streets, potentially victimizing you, stop allowing your state to slash funds and under-regulate mental health services. Help get housing and supportive services to these people that need it. Help push legislation that helps family members get protective guardianship that includes rock-solid supportive services and rights for these caretakers. When I reached the breaking point, when his father would provide a cell phone, just to ensure we have some way of communicating with him and making sure he was okay. He carelessly drops and smashes it right in front of his dad. He picks it up, laughs, and smashes it as hard as he can on purpose to make sure it was destroyed, and casually remarks, "Well, it looks like time for you to buy me a new phone." No, I did not allow his father to buy a new phone. I nearly had him answer a call from Felony Assaultsville, the connecting operator, my fist. Instead of washing his clothes with the soap we have left, he throws away his dirty clothes and demands we buy him new clothes. He will take a few bites of really high quality and expensive food I would prepare, and without a second thought, dump his full plate of pristine food right into the trash because he wasn't hungry. I would ask him why he would throw it away and not simply put the plate in his fridge to eat later. Because he has money anyways, or he did not have to explain to me why. He is a man. Okay, Mr. Man, what is in the trash is your food budget for the next rest of the week. What? You're a man, deal with it. And the horror goes on and on. I have gotten to the point that I actually want my stepson to accomplish pissing off the wrong person and being imprisoned or worse. The burden he has placed on our shoulders would be manageable if he was not so despicable. Regardless of his disease, I will not allow that to excuse or justify his repugnant actions. By telling a schizophrenic that their disease makes them an asshole, they will confabulate that reality and make it a fact. By telling him his wasteful behavior, violence, or disregard of the sacrifices of others is not his fault due to his schizophrenia, you are enabling him to become much, much worse. He will latch on to that idea that he is untouchable or blameless for anything he does, and will react violently if you attempt to call him on it. The pain etched on my husband's face is hard to permit. I want to spring to his defense and pummel the perpetrator. I understand the immense instinctual obligation my husband must feel because if our daughter was in the same position, I would be doing whatever I could as well. As a stepmother, I can inexplicably remove myself emotionally from my adult stepson a biological father or mother cannot simply flip that switch. I had to give up on our stepson a few years ago for myself and my family. It was unbearably painful for me to see all of the work we put into trying to give him at least a small chance at a normal, mediocre life. And my stepson would gleefully do whatever he could to unravel every plan we made. Staying up and planning out clothes and discussing what he should probably say to the judge to reduce the likelihood of a bad outcome. Morning, fuck you parents, he refused to dress and walked out the door saying that he did not have to go to court because the judge was not God and he is only accountable to God. We work tirelessly at helping him apply for SSI benefits and a halfway home/assisted living for people with similar mental health issues. Fuck you parents, I am not going to sign the SSI application because I am going to become a famous fucking rapper and you guys owe me like 60 grand anyways. I am going to live at my own hotel. He was trespassed from that hotel. Fuck that halfway house because I'm a man now and I make my own fucking rules. Well, oh shit. Guess who gets arrested for trespassing again and has a warrant for failure to appear for the first trespass? Guess that judge is God after all. Sorry, collect calls are auto-blocked and bail was never in our vocabulary. In all seriousness, I wish we could have our sweet boy back and he could have a normal life. I wish that he could have a boring job, douchebag or awkward friends, the chance to have loved and lost, drop out of college, even a midlife crisis. But I am not going to break my heart again. Lamenting what is lost, having to let go, hurts a lot less than holding on. All I see now is a disease that has killed and consumed our boy. Now a despicable stranger that serves no purpose for this world but to become a parasite in the community and on the souls of those who desperately cling to the chance of maybe seeing our beloved son one day. Sometimes I search for a glimmer of him, hoping that there's a chance of him recovering. But all I see now is a doppelganger that is only interested in having his lavish whims obeyed. No traits of empathy, not even an inner turmoil. The disease is deeply cruel. It refuses the very medication needed to bring our boy out of the hole, because it has tricked him into thinking that the meds are the absolute source of his problems or some conspiracy of all of us trying to poison him. I really fear that he will get into that one last fight with that type of person that refuses to be bullied by his aggressive panhandling. But I also secretly want him to get into that one last fight because I want the monster that has consumed our boy to be struck from this world, at last allowing the soul of our little boy to finally be free from his prison of madness. He did not deserve this fate. That sweet class clown with that adorable laugh and a head of curls I would ruffle every day did not deserve this. I tried to pull you from the void, but I could not save you. I could not save you. Fuck you, schizophrenia. I used to bully a kid in high school. I sent him an intimacy tape of me and his ex-girlfriend. He dropped out of school after that and went on to become a drug addict. I feel absolutely horrible about it, and I can't get over the feeling that I ruined his life. I was a terrible kid in high school. I was sort of a stereotypical jock bully kind of guy. I specifically bullied this one kid, Jack, who I just irrationally hated. I thought he was so unbelievably lame at the time, and me and my friends couldn't resist picking on him. Even just thinking about it makes me cringe. He was sort of an emo/scene kid who'd wear anime shirts, which made him a big target for us. He dated a girl named Jess, who apparently they broke up on really bad terms. He would write on MySpace, this was a while ago, that he desperately missed her and wanted her back, and he was so sorry. Jess sort of became friends with our group afterwards. something I'm sure Jack hated. One day, we got drunk together, and Jess was ranting about how much she disliked Jack and that he was such a sad, pathetic person. And eventually, we hooked up and our friends left. We were both sort of, I don't know how to describe it, in this evil, drunken mood. We decided to send a video of us having intimacy to Jack. The worst part was that, in retrospect, she actually had no real reason to hate Jack. She just hated that he was pathetic and needy. She was a terrible person too, I suppose. Hanging out with us made her a bully. Jack was never mean or cruel to her. She hated him because she thought he was too much of a loser. I mean, what the fuck was wrong with us that we were like this? He responded to the video saying that he wants to speak with Jess. And that was it. I told my friends what happened, and they thought it was hilarious. And soon, it was spread all over the school that I had intimacy with Jess and sent the video to Jack. I remember seeing Jack in the hallway, and I saw his face. And it literally pains me to think about it. But at the time, I thought it was awesome. His face was puffy red, his chin wobbly, his eyes were red. It was clear he was crying before, or maybe the sight of me made him want to cry again. We hysterically laughed at him, right to his face, and basically made fun of him by saying that we fucked his girl. I cringe in pain at the memory of that. I literally wish Jack just took out a fucking knife and jabbed us all in the throat. I could not believe we ever thought that was an okay way to fucking treat someone. And 99% of it was just trying to make my friends laugh. Trying to see just how cruel we could be to push things to extremes. I'm not even sure if I can fully understand the mindset I was in. It was a sense of complete superiority and distaste for someone weak like that. Jack would end up switching schools very soon after. Well, first he dropped out of school. Then he went to an alternative school, I think, something like that. Regardless, I found his Facebook page maybe a year or so later. My stomach dropped. It was filled with statuses about his addiction to pills and his attempts at recovery. Lots of stuff about the pain and anguish of his life and how much he struggles with mental issues. It's been a decade, and I still check his Facebook page a lot. And it's the same thing. He's now an H addict. He goes through bouts of recovery, then relapse, then recovery. I cannot help but feel fucking guilty. This happened right when he transferred schools. He mentioned it in his status that it happened when he left our school. That was when he got addicted to pills. He also mentioned he left his school because everyone hated him there. I sent him a message saying how sorry I was and that I could not believe I ever acted the way I did and that I apologize to the fullest for how we treated him. He left me on scene, which is understandable. It sucks. It makes me feel terrible about this. I wish I could just, I don't know, do something to make up for it. And it makes me feel terrible. I went on to have a great life. I went to a good college and married and have a 1-year-old kid. I live in a nice area in a relatively nice house. I sometimes think I would feel better if it was the kind of trope where the bully has a hard life and the kid getting bullied ends up super successful and the bully ends up a drunken loser, but that isn't what happened. I don't think there's anything in my entire life that I regret as much as what I did to Jack. And now let's get into some of the top comments. Someone says, to be honest, you literally ruined someone's life. You should feel like shit. Someone else comments underneath that saying, the streams of comments saying exactly this are what every bullied person needs to hear. We won't gloss over what the bully has done. An apology won't be enough. And we won't diminish the guilt the bully should feel. Someone else comments saying, leave him alone. You have done quite enough to him. Realize you have to reach out for your own satisfaction and not because you think it'll help him. You want absolution. He is not obligated to give you anything. If you must say anything, send him a letter. Tell him you don't want or expect him to respond. Don't sugarcoat what you did. You're honest here about how much of a dickhead you were, so I have every reasonable expectation that you can do that for him. Focus on being a better person to the people you have met, and consider becoming a mentor for teenage boys. They desperately need role models who know how to own up for their bullshit mistakes and apologize. You can also post publicly on social media about what you did and how much you regret it. You don't have to go into the specific details of effing his ex and sending the video to him, but if you mention it to the people who knew about it then, will know about it now. And then someone else says, fucking hate people like you. Apologies don't mean shit at this point. What's done is done. Someone else says, the only atonement for this would be to become an advocate against bullying. Talk at schools, get involved in community. You won't though. You're only here for the relief from your guilt. Here's to hoping your child doesn't run into someone like you. Someone else says, you do have a hard life, OP. You have to live with the knowledge that the world is in some regards a worse place for having you in it. And that's going to be hard. Maybe the person you victimized will never forgive you. Maybe you will never be able to fix your mistakes. However, you should reflect on this incident every time you're faced with the opportunity to treat someone with compassion. I let my little lie snowball into a big lie. Now my neighbor is in jail. My parents were out gambling last month and left me in charge of the house. I was trying to learn how to handle my dad's gun when it went off going through the TV, wall, and toilet. I didn't know what to do, so I made up a fake story of a burglary to get out of trouble. I had to file a police report and everything, and I did my best to not make the person seem like someone I know. But in the end, they ended up questioning my neighbor, who I guess did have previous burglary charges from 20 years ago. I had to go to the police station and ask a few more questions. They laid some photos out in front of me and asked me if anyone looked familiar. I immediately said yes to my neighbor. I didn't want to get him in trouble, but the police seemed so eager to get me to say yes. So I did. I'm not good under pressure. Now my neighbor is in jail. The police are holding him as my made-up villain. What I am looking for is advice on how to stay out of trouble. I think if I just keep my story straight, then everything will work out fine. My neighbor has committed crimes in the past, so overall, I am not too concerned about his story being more believable than mine. I want to come clean, but I don't think I can. I just want to get this over with. And oh my God, this is just ridiculous. I feel so bad for his poor neighbor that just got framed for a crime he obviously didn't do. Oh my God, I hope the OP actually came clean, but let's get into the comments. Someone says, mate, you are a disgrace. A man accepts the consequences of his actions. The way you are talking in this confession just makes me sick. Your whole tone is about getting yourself out of trouble, even though an innocent man is facing dire consequences due to your actions. You won't progress anywhere in life if you don't accept responsibility. It's time you ought to, not only for this innocent man, but for yourself and how you are going to grow in the future. Take a good hard look in the mirror. Jeez, you need to reevaluate some things. Oh, and this isn't a little lie, you fucking moron. Furthermore, guns aren't toys. Someone else says, I'm going to give you advice from one human to another right now. You fucked up, mate. You fucked up royal. Because of your stupid lie, an innocent man is in jail. God knows what he's feeling. God knows what is happening to him. Okay, now let's take a step back. You know you fucked up. You're confessing it. You have two options only. Number one, sit your parents down and tell them you have been thinking about it a lot and you have an important confession to make because you did something that got way out of hand. Had no idea it would result in such consequences for an innocent person. You feel awful. You want to do the right thing? Ask them for advice. This path is the path that will lead to them informing the police. You possibly having to face consequences for your actions, which could easily be a fine or a small amount of prison time. Or number 2, do nothing, just forget about it. Most people pick number 2. Hell, I'd pick number 2 because I'm not going to jail because of a lie I fucked up on. I'm also a piece of shit who's not strong at all physically or mentally. I have to live with that for the rest of my life. Just like you have to, I think. And then someone else comments saying, this is the most horrible thing I have ever seen so far on Reddit. So congrats on that. You are underage. You are not going to jail. You need to confess right now. Tell your parents what happened. You won't go to jail. You might get some probation, but you are a kid. Probation is nothing. Your post was well written, so I am not going to ask you if you are an idiot or not. But do you think your neighbor is an idiot? Nothing on this planet will turn a normal person into a cold-blooded killer faster than undeserved jail time. More than likely, your neighbor is being held under suspicion. They can't hold him forever on that. He will get out. He will be angry. And if the guy is smarter than a pavement, he is going to know 100% certainty that he is in jail because your dumbass shot a hole in your wall and blamed it on him so your parents wouldn't spank you. Being worried about your parents being mad at you should be the least of your fucking worries. You did a couple of $100 worth of damage to your house, you didn't burn it down. Being worried about what the innocent ex-con you got imprisoned is going to do to you when the police realize he wasn't involved. And they will because, punchline, he wasn't. Should be the only thing on your mind. Our first daughter was R-worded at 14, and we raised the baby as our own child. Our first daughter committed S-word, and we carried on raising the baby. My grandchild thinks we're her parents, and I can't bring myself to tell her the truth, even now. This is a lengthy confession. I'm sorry if you don't like reading long posts, you can skip to the end if you want. Our first daughter was R-worded when she was 14. It destroyed her childhood and flipped our lives upside down. You always assume if you bring your child up right and take care of them, nothing bad will happen. But something bad just happened anyways. And there was nothing we could do afterwards to make what happened right. The man who did it got sent to jail eventually. But our daughter was never the same again. Counseling never brought her smile back. Nothing seemed to work. She seemed so cold and emotionally dead from there onward, and we tried so hard to connect back with her, but nobody could. She was an island and didn't want to talk to anyone about anything. We, as parents, blamed ourselves for this. We ended up pulling our daughter out of school to homeschool her because her attendance was very bad, and she suffered night terrors which kept her awake some nights. It was probably a bad decision and overprotective parenting, but we wanted to protect her and felt a regular school wasn't a safe environment for her at the time. As if the situation could be any worse, we found out our daughter was pregnant with our R-worded child. We tried to suggest an operation to get rid of the baby because of her age and the situation, but she didn't want to. Our daughter refused to get the operation to get rid of the pregnancy, so we kept her out of school to give birth to the baby. We raised the child as our second daughter to give our first daughter the life she was robbed. We just wanted her to enjoy her life and told her we raised the baby for her as our sibling, and she agreed to this. It was partly out of fear of what the neighborhood would think, and partly out of wanting our daughter to continue having a normal teenage life. It wasn't ideal, but things worked for a time, and our daughter got to see her daughter whenever she wanted, which was better than giving the baby up to adoption. Things didn't last this way for long, though, as our daughter's mental health started to deteriorate. When our first daughter started to become heavily S-word, there was nothing we could do, because every time we tried to get closer to her, she'd push us away worse than before. She was hospitalized several times for S-word attempts until she succeeded. this destroyed us. At first, we hated the baby and blamed it. We blamed it for the death of our daughter and were in denial it was our fault. Eventually, though, we realized we were to blame, not the child who was brought into the world by no fault of their own. We'd focused for so long on the fact it was half of the R-wordest child that we'd overlooked the fact it was also half of our daughter. It took a lot of time to come to this conclusion, but we'd always looked after the baby out of respect to our daughter. The thought of giving it up to adoption went through my mind several times, but I knew my daughter didn't want this, and so did my wife. We gave her daughter, our daughter, the best life we could. We bought her anything she could ever want. Took her to concerts and on holidays. We even sent her to a private school despite the extra expense with hopes that she will become successful in life and live the life our daughter never got to live. She's home right now, and whenever she hugs me or my wife and says, "I love you, Mom and Dad," it hurts like a dagger through our hearts. I always look towards my wife every time our daughter says it. She finds it as painful as I do, and I can tell by the look in her eyes. It's not that we don't love her. It's that her entire life is being lived as a lie. We're actually her grandparents, and she has no idea of this. She's never asked if we're really her true parents because obviously she has never had a reason to. Part of me, though, believes lying by omission is still lying, though. We've never told her the truth about her sister being her mother. She knows her sister committed S-word, but she is too young to remember it. I feel as though we're protecting her from being damaged and hurt by keeping her oblivious to all of this. Maybe I'm just being selfish. Maybe my wife is too. We just don't want to see her suffer. The thought of her not being strong enough to hear the truth scares me the most. I know I shouldn't compare her to my other daughter, but I would never forgive myself if she committed S-word too after learning the truth. I cannot lose both of them. I can't survive another loss like this. The whole situation is soul-crushing. The only person I can talk to is my wife. It feels like some massive thing nobody else can ever know. Not even our own parents know the truth. My son was in a car accident, and it was my fault. A little backstory. I had kidney stones while pregnant, and all that could be done for me was narcotic pain management. After he was born, the doctor didn't wean me off the meds I'd been on for months, so I developed a habit. At the time, I had a best friend who was a druggie, so she would give me pills whenever I needed them. After a while, we both decided to get clean and get better. I was clean and knew she was trying to get clean too. When my son was 5 months old, this best friend was babysitting him and borrowed one of our cars to run some errands. We got a call that she'd been in an accident on I-65 and totaled the car, with our infant in the back seat. Come to find out, her errands were driving to a shady part of town to buy pills and do them off a coffee table while my son was in his car seat beside her. When we got to the scene of the accident, we had multiple witnesses telling us she was doing speeds of over 100 miles an hour and appeared to be nodding off at the wheel. She rear-ended a family down from Indiana on vacation. When we showed up, she was holding my son, and the first thing she said was, "They're already telling the police this was my fault. They're all liars. You know I never put him in danger." I said, "Just give me my baby." Then the police pulled her aside to talk. While getting our belongings out of the car, my husband found a needle in the front seat. My son was fine. His car seat had been wiggled slightly sideways, but in the abundance of caution, he was still taken by the ambulance to Vanderbilt Children's. I cried the entire way. My son could have died because I decided to keep a woman around that I thought was a friend. This was years ago, and I haven't spoken to her since that day. I am 100% clean and sober now because of this, but I still feel such a tremendous guilt that I have nightmares.
and I'm crying now as I type. And all right, guys, that wraps up some horrifying confession threads. And today's video was heavy. As you can tell, there was some heavy confessions in here. Let me know your thoughts down below, and make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel for more narrations and videos like this. And I really appreciate the support. It means the world. Please follow me on Instagram, follow me on Spotify, and please rate me 5 stars on Spotify. It helps so much. And if you enjoyed this video, I'm sure you will enjoy other videos on the channel. So go check out some other videos. And I just want to say thank you so much for watching to the end of the video. It means the world. And also, please let me know, would you like to see longer videos than this, longer than 2 hours, or shorter than this, or somewhere in between? I read every single comment, so your support means the world, and all the comments and kind words don't go unnoticed. And yeah, thank you so much for watching. And this was Snook, and I'll see you next time. Bye.